Hey everyone, and welcome to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 214. I am Peter, and joining me, well, actually not joining me, Matt's, of all the weeks, he's not missed an episode in probably close to a year or something like that. I feel like it's been a while since he's been gone, and he picks this week, the week of the crisis, as it were, to be missing. So Matt's wife surprised him yesterday or the day before with a surprise day trip for the day. So
he claims it is worth noting that the hockey is on today.
no, he's also missing the hockey. I saw him tweeting earlier.
I know,
he's actually on the road to some
unknown
monument.
location.
Yes, it's a surprise. He doesn't know where he's going.
I asked him last night, hey, do you need me to give you the hockey updates? And he's like, I think I'm going to get cell service where I'm going, so I should be okay.
I suspect the wife's just taking him out to a ditch somewhere, and this is the end.
We might never see Matt again.
This is the end. So we have our own layoffs this week, just not by choice. So yes, we're a DC Comics podcast. That's also Connor, who's here, whose voice you're hearing.
Yes.
I actually bothered introducing you. Talking about why Matt's not here was just far more interesting and entertaining. So coming up on this week's show, obviously the books we're going to be talking about, I'll just get those out of the way first. We got Dark Knight's Death Metal issue 3 coming out. We got Superman 24, Wonder Woman 760, The Flash 759, Hawkman 26, Batman The Outsiders number 15 are the books we're going to talk about. One of the most awkward things about Matt not being here is that 4 of those books Matt reads with one of us, but not both of us, meaning that there's going to be several books this week there. It's either just me or just Connor. In fact, 3 of them are just me, and then 1 is just Connor.
Yeah,
so,
and all of those usually would have at least a 2-person conversation.
Yes, so bit of an awkward week for the books. Luckily, the books feel like an afterthought this week because we have so much news. We have November Solicits, of course, which is always a big deal every month. And then we have the big news that happened this week with the mass layoffs, the bloodbath at DC, although indeed Warner Bros. As well as a whole. So we'll get into that, some stuff. In fact, something I've not even set up, but I should get up actually to talk about before we finish the news section is the schedule for Fandom, which did actually come out in the last couple of days.
Yes, so although correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no dedicated comic stuff on that schedule.
No, so there was actually a Jim Lee art villains, Jim Lee draws villains panel or something like that. So that was the one that was the most comic booky out of the whole.
Right, there'll be stuff in there, I'm sure. Yeah,
well, there was one they were teasing. I saw on Twitter yesterday. It was like, hey, there's going to be a newsworthy panel at 2:00 Pacific at Fandom, and it's like it's not got a name yet. It's just a surprise DC panel. So that could be comics. It could be a movie. It could be TV.
I would suspect with the way they're hyping it, it's not comics.
Very possibly.
But you never know, I suppose.
So yes, we'll get into everything. Biggest news week, at least since Didio left.
Yeah, I was gonna say when this news broke the other day, and we'll get into it properly in a minute, but it was, I think Monday it broke, so nearly a week ago now. And I went, oh man, that week where Didio left now and that news, that seems like small fry in comparison.
And the larger implications probably, in terms of talking about, they're probably closer than I would maybe have thought.
In terms of discussion, sure. I just mean in terms of the actual impact on the business going forward in the long term.
There's a lot to unpack here, and I was kind of dreading talking about this a little bit this week because the internet kind of thrives on negativity and fear-mongering, and I like, there's certain topics I'm quite happy to be negative on.
I know.
I do it often. But there was just this instant fear-mongering where the second all this broke, there was immediately wild speculation about the future of comic books, the future of DC comic books. There was misinformation being thrown around. There was information that was just being made up that was then being spread. And if I have one goal through talking about this on this show that I want to achieve by the end of this conversation, regardless of whatever Connor's going to say, is to basically calm everyone down a little bit and just sort of, look, we're not at DEFCON 5 yet, okay? Or 1. What was that? What's the
one? I think 1's the bad.
Is 1 high? Is 1 okay? We're not at DEFCON 1 yet, right? We're like DEFCON 3. We're not quite up at DEFCON 1.
Yeah, 3 solid. I know that we're doing a bit of damage control after all these, wild speculation we're going around. they had Jim Lee doing an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, I think it was, that gave us a lot of actual, a little bit
Yeah,
more clarity, that had some really useful information in it that I'm sure we'll refer to.
yeah, I've got a lot of tabs open. It was hard to get one good source of all the various things that came out of this
Yeah,
news.
that was a good one though, that Hollywood Reporter interview, because it was directly from Jim Lee, and it was
Yeah.
without all the, well, maybe this or maybe that.
So, first things first, what actually happened? So, on Monday, they announced that, and this is not DC Comics, I'll get to DC Comics specifically in a second, but AT&T obviously bought Warner Brothers, or merged with Warner Brothers, whatever the correct term is.
I think they bought them because
yeah.
they kept their name.
But that happened a while ago now, right? And it's a sort of thing where it's like, okay, what's going to happen because of this? But it wasn't obviously just DC Comics, it was like Warner Brothers Studios, it was everything, it was the whole enchilada. And we're waiting for kind of the effects of this. It's like, okay, is there going to be a lot of corporate suits coming in and doing this or that? And this is kind of really what's ultimately been building to for a while. Probably got accelerated a little bit by what's going on this year, I would suspect.
Almost certainly.
What happened is that they are reorganizing and restructuring every single facet of Warner Brothers. That is the HBO, it's DC Comics, it's everything from top to bottom. I'm sure even Boomerang took some hits this week. I'm not sure specifically, but I'm sure they did. HBO, for example, lost 150 employees this week. So I think this larger context is very important here, because none of what we were about to talk about is specifically targeting DC Comics. It's like DC Comics is caught up in a wave that has there's a larger agenda for the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
I think there are elements specific to DC that we'll get into a little bit later in the story that I want to bring up at least, that are they're exacerbated and brought on because of the wider restructuring, but they are specific to DC, some of these elements.
Yeah, it's about DC, but I genuinely don't think anything that happened this week was about specifically targeting DC Comics. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because so many people talking about this online are talking about Warner Bros. Trying to kill off the comic book industry, or they're trying to do this, trying to do that. If you look across the board at what they've done at every single level for every single company they own, or every subdivision they have, or whatever you want to call it, is that essentially what they're doing is they're trying to cut down the number of employees, and specifically kind of upper level employees. Now, obviously, DC's a little bit unique in that the editor-in-chief, Bob Harras, was one of the people who were let go. And then, to be honest, out of all the names, that's the one that most of us went, you know what, that's not so bad. you could probably go.
Do with that, yeah.
Yeah. But if you look at a lot of the other companies, one thing that I saw pointed out was that a lot of the people who were being kicked out from all these other places, it was a lot of vice presidents. It was a lot of, like, not the bosses, but the people under the bosses who they're deeming just kind of redundant to the operation.
I think just to bring this into DC specifically, and I don't know if this exact number translates across the board, but I believe it's around 20% of DC's staff, like editorial staff, will let go. However, it is very strongly weighted towards the top end where they're paid a higher wage. So the overheads are pretty significant in comparison. And I think that's what it's about. It's about getting those overheads down.
Yeah, this is a financial measure. This is not a creative measure. Now, obviously, there'll be creative fallout to this in time because you've got new people in charge. Ultimately, eventually, it's going to lead to other creative decisions and so on and so on.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
But I do not believe for a second that this decision, not at any level, was them looking at DC and going, no, we don't like the direction of the stories, we're going to change everything. I don't think for a second that was anything that happened here.
Yeah,
I think it's they're losing his money, so we want to fire some people, and obviously there's some knock-on effects to that, but it's very different.
Yeah, just to show you how wild the speculation was, and this is one example that I want to bring up because it was in the interview with Jim Lee. So the interviewer said, one rumor they heard this week is that DC is only going to sell trades and original graphic novels and make a deal with Marvel for them to publish any single issues. Yes. That there was his reaction too. The article literally just says, as his answer, laughs. There is nothing further from the truth than that. I don't even know how you would connect those dots. Why would we ever do that?
I'd heard the first part about only selling trades and giving up in the singles market, which there's multiple reasons to think that's laughable. I had not heard the wild part about Marvel being the ones to publish the single issue DC comic. So much bullshit this week. There's a lot of speculation this week about the price of comics in the future and changing, and there was wild speculation, like, on the day all this news broke of, we might be at $8 comics by the end of the by the end of the year.
And who knows? That may still be the direction that they take.
Well, this is what I said. When all this sort of started and we were talking about it internally, my basic thing was, okay, if they try and give us the same comics they give us now for $7 or $8 an issue, yeah, I'm going to have a problem with that. But if they alter the content to fit whatever the new price is, so let's say it's more like, oh, everything's more of a prestige format, everything's like 60 pages, and it's treated like everything's black label, essentially, is what I'm saying, then it's a little bit different. There should be less books, and we'll have less books overall to talk about, obviously, if that was the format. Now, we don't know if it's going that way. This is just an example I'm giving of like, it'd be fine if the format, goes with the price in some way. All this fear mongering, and it was the day I dare say the horrible name, but not the website. I know you think I'm going with this.
I did think that's what you were going to go with.
No.
I was like, we could use initials.
There's a YouTuber by the name of Chris Rudolph.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Something like that. If that's not her exact name, I don't know. But she's been kind of a proponent of like fear mongering, bullshit news, controversy. She was all over Snyder Cut stuff, whatever that. I didn't even see the video, but I saw like a screen cap of the video where like they were talking about how the DC universe is dead. And obviously we joke that it's dead a lot as well in terms of original content, which is actually, there was more of an official update on that this week, which we'll get to.
Again, from Jim Lee.
Yeah. But it was basically how it was gone. And it was the very next day, the announcement of what DC Universe from Jim Lee is going to become happened. And likewise, DC are going to stop single issues. The very next day, the Secret History of the DC Universe, which we'll talk about later in Solicits, was confirmed to be coming finally. It's like, hey, they literally just announced a new single issue comic book the next day. Now, so this is the thing, is that when the Solicits came out, and we're going to talk about what actually is in the Solicits later as we go through them, but there's a number of books that have been cancelled. There's like 4 or 5 books that got cancelled, or are ending, depending on your terminology. And immediately people were like, oh, this is already happening, they're already cancelling tons of books because of all the changes and yada yada yada. I am so glad that last month we had an entire conversation, because I can point back to it and say, no, we expected this, because we did. We talked about this on several levels for the last couple of months.
I will say, again, based on Jim Lee's comments, it's possible that some of these cancellations were down to this situation. Because he talks about how, they are going to be publishing less. That bottom 20-25% of the line.
No, but that's not because of this week, though. Just because they were already looking to cut the lower selling books, which has happened before. We did this a year ago when they said they were going to trim the line. Just because they were already planning to do that, I do not think anything that happened in these solicits, especially next month's solicits, maybe, but in these month's solicits, not a single thing that's in them happened as a result of what happened on Monday.
No, I agree overall, and I think it's important to note as well that the editors and everyone being let go, it's like done through an official redundancy way, so it's not like immediately gone. They're all actually still there till November,
or at least getting paid till November.
Yeah, but most of them I think are still kind of working. Like especially the hands-on editors. Like Harras, I think is a separate case because we actually have interim editor-in-chief.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit.
But
it's obviously
it'll take a few months to see changes.
We've been talking about what's going to happen to the comics, what's happening overall. It is worth mentioning. Yes, it's very sad. So many people lost their jobs across Warner Bros. As a whole. It was 800 people. DC, I don't know the exact number that accounted for it, but lots of people lost their jobs. That's the sad.
It sucks, believe me. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you do know. It's the sad human part of this. But ultimately, we're here to talk about DC Comics, and we're kind of talking about it from the Bendis perspective. I think the reactions to this are like, red alert this, red alert that. Everyone, we're all doomed. Do you know how many times in history of DC Comics that something similar to this has happened? There was a story. I only just skimmed the article, but there was a story from Paul Levitz back in the crash in like either the 80s or the 90s where they almost cancelled Detective Comics because things were
this
looking...
is their implosion. It's officially called the DC implosion. Where they published, like they ramped up production on so many things. Like they were throwing out so many comics. They got about 3 months into that before they went, we can't sustain this, and like 40% of their line got cut overnight.
Yeah, this kind of thing happens to companies constantly, and I think the frustrating thing is that this happens to DC Comics, it happens to a comic book company, and we're all nerds on the internet now. And all of a sudden, everyone on Twitter is an expert in business and all these things. And I'm not claiming to be an expert or to know even necessarily any better than anyone else, just that I'm not jumping to conclusions and I'm trying to critically think about all the information that's been given to me. And more importantly, ruling out some of the bullshit that is just bullshit and is clearly bullshit and has been, there was stuff up in the certain website, which shall remain nameless, begins with bleeding, ends with a word meaning cold, and there was like a report from them like the day of, and like the very same day on Twitter, like people who have contacts with DC. I think Ryan Higgins from Comics Conspiracy was saying, no, I've actually spoke to people from DC, and they're outright giving me the opposite statements as to what that article was saying. So we see this constantly, and everything's not burning to the ground. Everyone can calm down a little bit. Yes, we're going to have a few less comic books. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Ultimately, it's maybe sad that some of the smaller sort of mid-level characters might not have long ongoings anymore. It is a shame because there's definitely characters that we all want to see. But ultimately, if it means a lot more 12-issue series where it's just not a 12-issue from start and that's what we have and that's what we're going to get, I'd rather didn't lie about it, and more on that when we get to one of the books that are ending in November. But
yeah,
that's okay. Like, I mean, some of the most exciting books we have right now are these Tom King 12-issue books where it's like, hey, he's doing a 12-issue run on X character, and it's exciting, and it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even need necessarily 12-issue books. Give me just rotating 6-issue minis of small characters, constantly. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I do thoroughly believe, I do think there will be, maybe not as many that we've lost, but I do think there's going to be a slate of some books post-Death Metal, whatever they may be. I think
it's still very likely we will get at least a handful announced next week.
Very probably. Yeah, maybe it won't be the 15 I was expecting. It'll be more like 7. But
I'll be shocked if we come out next week without at least 3.
Sure, yeah. Especially if they're going to stagger them, so they may just give us the early ones, the January, February ones, as opposed to, because there might be stuff still coming out in April that's,
very possible.
Yeah. So everyone just take a breath. Everything's not burning from within, and obviously this leads to the worries of like who's coming in to take over. The 2 interim co-editors in chief that they've appointed to, let me just get their names up here. Marie Javins and Michelle Wells. So they are sort of co-editor in chief. Well, Jim Lee, because Jim Lee, like what his role was going back and forth all week. Is he still publisher? Or is he just CEO now? What's going on? CCO. Sorry. The weird thing about this is that Jim Lee started off being co-publisher, and then got shoved with Johns's job of being the COO, and then got shoved with being the full publisher, to the point where he was doing 3 people's jobs at once, which was never going to be sustainable, right? So,
but he is still publisher.
He is still publisher.
Like, straight from his mouth.
Yeah.
But again, in that interview, they just point blank asked him, "Is your title still publisher?" And he said, "Yes." And
it's worth mentioning, I'm not as familiar with Michelle Wells, but Marie Javins, she's been with DC Comics for decades. Like, this is not someone who they just plucked out of some random, some suit who's coming in to, do things. I think a lot of people have this misconception because, she was previously the head of digital strategy, and then Wells was the one who was dealing with the young adult stuff, right? The imprints. I think there's this perception that because that's where they come from, it means that they're going to turn the main line or the job they're taking into what their old job was, when no, they've got a new job. Like, don't get me wrong.
Would say, I mean, the reason I would say they were hired is objectively the young adult stuff, especially, has been doing fantastic over the last year or two, and the digital stuff has had a great push. Obviously, they've been increasing their market share, and I think there's still going to be a heavy focus on those areas.
Oh, so do I.
And maybe even more so now that they can kind of push that in the top position.
Yeah, me saying this is not me saying that they're not going to have more young adult books. I mean, those trades they're putting out, those straight to graphic novels, like I think they've been doing well. And then
I believe they have, yeah.
Digital's something obviously they want to keep growing. It's been kind of stagnant for a while.
I mean, Jim Lee mentioned again in his article there will be more straight to digital original content, and some of it might be bigger than what it has been. Not all of it will get print adaptations. He talked about how Injustice was such a huge hit digitally and then sold well in print as well. Like digitally, the original Injustice was outselling Batman at the time. which is crazy.
Which also maybe leads to a shift in what we cover. Like, typically we've kind of ignored these shorter digital chapters, but there's a good chance that if, things are shifting more digital, then so will our coverage. Like, our coverage might become like, hey, some of these digital-only books are just as valid or more so even than some of the physical books. And amusingly, I read everything digitally anyway, so I mean, the actual reading experience for me is pretty similar.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, obviously we had all those ones that were originally from the Walmart giants, that kind of style of the DC digital comics that we've had over the last few months, that felt very much like traditional comics, right? As opposed to the digital first format.
Yeah,
and
which I did prefer, for the record. I like that.
Right, and obviously that there's an obvious reason where that started with, well, they were Walmart things, so they were in print first and just, okay, now we're actually just doing them digital. But they did start then carrying on after the Walmart stuff and doing original comics, so to speak.
And they kept the
straight to
format.
digital, and they kept the format. Yeah, they just mostly relatively standalone single issues for the most part, but ongoing. And not just half page panel layout, however you want to call it.
Which, and I definitely prefer the more traditional comic format. So that's something that pleases me. They're toying with that, and it did come from something that was physical first, but then it didn't need to be anymore, and they kept it anyway. So interesting to see how this develops over time. And it's one of these things where, okay, we have no way of knowing in a year or 2 years' time. Like, maybe the corporate bigwigs will sort of step in and force a bunch of things on them, and maybe it will affect things, but we're not going to see those effects for probably at least a few months, if not more than that.
The digital stuff we might see a little bit sooner, because I think they've already got a head start. They've they have been starting in that the last few months, I think.
Oh, sure. I mean more about like the other stuff going away, is
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean,
but I think things like, we talk about smaller characters getting minis and stuff like that. Some of those might not get minis in print. Some of them might just be digital minis. Like, I think Shazam's a great character example for this, where, okay, he had a book by Johns and it didn't actually sell that well. Like, it's ultimately just coming to an end. But they've already been doing a digital first, again, the Walmart style, traditional comic format, digital first. Over the last couple of months, they had at least a couple of issues out on there, and I can see, okay, we want to give Shazam a miniseries. Maybe they do a digital first, and if it sells well, then bring it to print.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that we'll have to look at, is sort of maybe looking at more of these digital books.
A bit more attention. It's a little harder because they don't have solicits in the same way.
Yeah, they don't. It was sort of thing though, when we just go to get books like during the week, or I mean, I often buy them on a Tuesday and don't read them till Saturday because I'm a weirdo. But but it's the sort of thing that while I'm there and on that new this week DC page, if there's a new digital book, just to grab it as well. Because even Deceased at World's End, I've fallen behind on, and I mean, it won't take that long to catch up because they're pretty quick reads. But it's the sort of thing where it's just not in my routine to look at the digital books. They feel separate still.
But over the next year or so, I think it's a reasonable time frame. It might have to be.
One thing we have to talk about as well is DC Universe. Now, I actually am surprised almost, not because this is not the right thing to do, and not because it's not the thing that we've been suggesting they do.
Just how honest they were about it.
Well, it's just like we always said, the right thing to do would be for DC Universe just to become a dedicated Marvel Unlimited competitor, or not even competitor, just the equivalent, right? Yeah. It doesn't have to compete with it necessarily, just it's the equivalent.
I mean, by its nature, it's a competitor, but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they really care about getting more subscribers. It's more just about, we have that on offer too. It's not,
Yeah.
This isn't like I don't know, like a video game console where they're trying, because most people only buy one, so you're trying to convince them to buy your one.
Right, that's because it's such a high upfront cost. Whereas this, if they get you for 6 months and then you go to Marvel Unlimited for 3 months and then come back, great. Yeah, they're still getting you 9 months of the year.
It's fine. It's totally fine. But they're officially, Jim Lee officially said that all original, TV content, film content, whatever, is going to HBO Max. If whatever hasn't already moved already, obviously Doom Patrol's already. I mean, it was still on DC Universe, but it was already HBO Max at home. So, and the service will be comics focused. It'll be a comic book service.
He actually said there'll be more news on this soon. I'm assuming we'll get some sort of official announcement of fandom about the future of it.
Do you think they announced they're bumping it to 6 months delay instead of a year?
That, or they bring down the price.
Yeah, either or.
I think
Yeah.
like the price isn't bad. I think it's $9, $8. I should know. I pay for it. I have no idea.
$8.99 sound. Oh, maybe $7.99. So it was one of the two.
Yeah, it's around there. Um, I think it's actually not a bad price for the amount, even for just the comics, the amount of content. I think it's a worthwhile value. But because they are taking stuff away with the content, the TV content and such, they have to do something to make the value seem like it's fair in comparison now. Like I say, either lower the price because okay, you're losing content, or bring the comics sooner, or I mean, maybe even something as similar as okay, we're adding all the Vertigo comics because right now it's just mainline DC Universe stuff.
Mm.
Vertigo things,
I can see
with a
that.
couple of exceptions, aren't on there.
I can see that happening over time, regardless of what else they do. You know, the idea that the library will just get bigger and they'll just include more of it. Yeah, it could either be lower the price, or it could be the window shorter, or they could do the 1-2 punch of both. If they put it down, because let's say that if they weren't changing anything else, you'd expect it maybe go down a couple of dollars. What if they put it down $1, but also bump the window to 6 months? That all of a sudden looks quite nice.
It looks far more tempting than it did the day before.
It does. So who knows what they'll do at fandom. Again, we'll talk about fandom a bit more at the end of all this. We're just kind of going through everything that came out of all this hubbub.
Yeah, I think it's just I only really brought it up because he mentioned there would be news soon, and that's the logical place.
Yeah. Now, as I understand it, some people were freaking out because someone that was in line for a position was like from an esports thing. Is this like an actual creative role though, or was this more of like a business side of things? Because I feel like if it's a business side of thing, who cares where they came from? Like, yeah.
I'm not sure. Here we go. See if I can find something.
Give us some info on this, because I never quite got the gist of what this esports complaint was.
Apparently, again, I haven't seen this confirmed yet, so grain of salt, but reported that DC will hire a new business manager to run the publishing side of things, and it sounds they will be coming from the world of esports.
Yeah, business manager. I don't care where they came from. That's not someone who's making choices about the stories.
It shouldn't be, no.
Yeah, I don't think that matters.
And apparently a source told Variety on this that even through this, Jim Lee will be overseeing the creative side of things, the creative growth. So
yeah, I'm not perturbed by that. So
yeah,
I'll just knock that one out quickly.
Yeah, we'll worry about that if and when it happens, and if they do something wrong.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Like before, Dan Didio was, co-publisher and whatever other roles he was named over the years. Like, what notable things had he done before then? Notable.
That's a fair question.
Some people might say, well, exactly, that's why he was terrible for all that time. Like, I mean, fair point, I suppose, if that's how you feel about it. But
yeah. I mean, the being from the world of esports might be a good thing in the sense that esports objectively, in the last 5-10 years has taken off, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I can put on like a dedicated sports channel on, on the TV, usually at night when there's not other sports on, but I can watch like a FIFA tournament or, League of Legends. I can watch that on actual mainstream sports channels. The idea of that a decade ago is laughable.
Oh, yeah.
And just in terms of brand awareness and public perception of it, don't get me wrong, it's still not, it's not on the same level as quote unquote real sports, but it's a lot further than it was, 5-10 years ago. If whoever this is can do something for that with comics, I'm all for it.
Yeah. So 20 to 25% of the line being, which to be honest, I think they've already hit, even just with like last month and this month's. I mean, this in terms of Solicits, not the actual books coming out. They're almost at that percentage. Like 20%.
It depends on if they were going 20 to 25% from after these decisions have already been made. Like, let's assume these decisions in November Solicits were already made, and it's 20 to 25% from here now. That's a little more concerning.
I mean, it's a little more, but I mean, percentages, this is the great thing. If it's after that, then the percentage is smaller.
It is, yeah.
In terms of actual number of books.
Yeah.
because I suspect that we're going to actually cancel what we've cancelled, and then I presume maybe another couple in December's. I assume we'll be adding some books back in, but just not as many, and therefore the over the nets, because there's so many of these one shots coming out for Metal and even these Dark Multiverse things that we're getting more of in the Solicits.
I think it's fair to say maybe all these higher priced one shots are sort of a proof of concept.
I guess. I mean, look, I guess some people are worried that 80% of the books that are coming out are going to be Bat related, right? That is a legitimate concern.
It's probably, out of all the concerns people had, the one most likely to be true.
Yeah, the most valid one. Yeah. So, I mean, all I can really say is if you really care that way, is buy all the books that aren't Bat related and show. Like, that's really all you can do, is put your money where your mouth is, because ultimately, like, if there's enough people who will just buy all the Bat books, and that keeps all the Bat books, valuable and worth doing for them, they're going to keep doing it. So,
I mean, as much as we read all these stuff, we love so much other stuff than Bat stuff. Yeah, if I'm the business person in charge of this, and I'm seeing, well, hang on, Batman is selling like crazy, and everything else is barely performing, I'm saying do more Bat stuff.
Forgetting your one shots tying into Metal and whatnot that they're doing just now, out of the main Bat books, we're only really doing Batman, because we dropped Batgirl. I mean, Batgirl's ending anyway, admittedly, but we're not doing Nightwing, we're not doing Catwoman, we're not doing Detective.
We probably will try Catwoman though when the new team starts, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'd forgotten about it, to be honest.
But Ram V, who might have been enjoying a lot on Justice League Dark, is taking over in a month or two.
Yeah. So what I'm saying though is that I don't think we as a podcast can be blamed as part of the problem. I don't think on this case.
I would actually like to think that is true.
I think we actually are a bit more diverse.
On that, there is already evidence of more Bat books on the way. Like,
yeah, one that was just casually name dropped is that John Ridley, who's doing the Secret History of the DC Universe, or the other History of the DC Universe, to get the title right, is doing a Batman book, which is going to be like fundamental in the line going forward, which is a very interesting statement to make.
Two things about this: one, it's being released as a mini. Jim Lee mentioned that. Two, this is something that has been reworked, because we kind of knew about this book a year ago.
Yeah, this was originally going to be the 5G thing,
this was originally, this was after Batman 100. The 5G was going to be John Ridley taking over the book, and I think it was going to be Luke Fox as Batman, and that was what was going to be the main Bat book.
Which is nice on its own, in the sense that, like, oh, well, your story was still good, so you can still tell it in this other way. That's kind of nice. But I think what's interesting there is saying that it's going to be important for the entire line going forward does make you feel like, oh, it's still going to be important. Whatever it does to the characters is still going to affect the other books and still going to have some sort of consequence.
And I don't know if this is bad or not, but I'm kind of more interested in it in this way as, okay, no, it's a separate mini. It'll have impact like minis have done in the past. But also, we can still have our ongoing Bat book doing its own thing as well.
Yeah, and there's I think what's interesting as well is speaking to these these minis and one shots doing very well, is that Jim Lee did say in one of these interviews this week that the first issue of Batman 3 Jokers has, as far as the orders have gone, has sold 300,000 copies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little dubious about this one.
Well, we have nothing to confirm what he's saying here, because no one's releasing numbers.
It's kind of their own internal sales figures at this point. They are doing a lot of variant covers and gimmicks to drive up sales, though, I guess. I guess stores are ordering to get the variants.
Let's face it, it's a Jeff Johns 3-issue prestige Batman Joker book.
It was always going to sell pretty damn well.
Like, I buy it breaks 150 without much effort, so getting to 300,000 with all the variants, because they're doing a lot of good variants for it, so it doesn't really shock me that much.
Yeah, I would have probably estimated around 170 to 190.
Here's the thing. Even if he's padding these numbers a little bit, I totally believe it's over 200. I can believe it's over 200,000.
No, I can, but like I said, 170 to 190 would have been my initial estimate based off of how well new Bat books sell, John's Fabric, what it is in general.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going for it.
170 to 190 would have been my estimate. You tell me, oh, it's 210. I'll go, yeah, sure. I wouldn't, I don't doubt that. 300, I'm going, okay, that seems extreme.
Yeah. So so that's that. That's that bit. We mentioned DC Universe, so that's good. We got that out of the way. We mentioned the John Ridley series. I have all these separate tabs open. I'm just sort of closing them as I'm making sure we've talked about all these things. Well, Connor's internet went out there, so there might be a fairly abrupt cut to whatever I was saying before. So, but
I'm sure it was nothing interesting.
we're ready to jump into the solicits now, I think, and go through those, and kind of see what we could do here. If I want, felt that I would say is there was some joking actually. If DC Comics do stop publishing comic books, we kind of just all shrugged and went, well, I guess we'll just be a comic book podcast then, if that happens, rather than DC comic book podcast. Luckily though, I don't think we're in any danger of that. So
No, I don't either.
Everyone calm down. It's fine. We will persevere, and before we know it, we'll have a 50 issue run on Kite Man, and we can all die happy. So, solicitations for November. Obviously, we'll get to the cancellations as we go through these here as well, and our thoughts on what those are specifically. So the first thing in the solicits for November is we got the Other History of the DC Universe issue 1, which is the John Ridley book. Art in this first issue is by Giuseppe Camincoli and Andrea Cucci. So this is a 5-issue Black Label bi-monthly series.
Which we didn't mention a lot of the specific editors, but we did lose Mark Doyle and Andy Corey, who are both Black Label editors.
Yeah, it was weird to lose
the kind of the heads of those.
It was weird to lose the two people in charge of Black Label, but I don't really see Black Label going anywhere though, because Black Label seems to be one of the more successful elements of the line right now.
I had assumed so, which is why those felt particularly strange. But I mean, obviously this was well underway already. We'll see how much Black Label we get in the future, I guess.
Yeah, I suspect, because I know Lemire's got another Black Label book planned. He was teasing recently, so. But yeah, so this is 5 issues bi-monthly. This was announced 2 years ago. This was announced in 2018. That's how long ago we've been talking about this. We kind of forgotten about it, and everyone assumed it was gone.
Yeah, I think the general feeling was that it had been kind of unofficially cancelled a while ago.
Which makes it very interesting to announce its existence the day after all of that, fear and everything's ending. So I would, I guess, get the victories where you can take them. But yeah, so this is a series of stories and perspectives of people in the DC universe, specifically people of color. There's the first issue, I assume, is Black Lightning related because he's the one on the cover.
It is, yes.
Yeah. But we have future stories on Katana and others. So
Montoya's one.
Yeah, there you go. So super interesting. Looking forward to checking this out, especially since Ridley's going to go on to do some, the Batman book. So we'll see, what he's like in a comic. Obviously, he's written some movies and things like that. 12 Years a Slave being one of the most notable ones. So we'll see how that is.
I think a comic before. I'm sure he has.
He probably, maybe he has, but I'm unaware of it.
Yeah, The American Way. That's what it was. Also published by DC.
Oh, there you go.
And also The Razor's Edge Warblade from DC.
Then next up, we have a one-shot Punchline Special Issue 1, clearly tying into Joker War, or maybe a fallout of Joker War.
Spinning out of the pages of Joker War.
Yeah. So James Tynion IV and Sam Johns are writing with Mirka and Dolfo on the art. So yeah, I'm fine with this. I saw some people being really kind of salty about this on Twitter because all these books with these characters we love are being cancelled and Punchline's getting a one shot. I'm like, yeah, it's a one shot tying into things. We're always going to get these one shots for various characters.
I think I'm a little not that I think this is because of the characters that we've lost. It's unrelated. I'm a little just unjazzed about this. The solicit even says the first solo book starring the new blockbuster character. And I'm like, really? I don't.
Okay, I'll give you that.
We've had Punchline in 2 issues, and she's fine, but I can already feel the fatigue just with the amount of stuff that's coming.
I'll give you the text there. You're feeling a little bit. Let's just say a little preemptive. But
Yeah,
you
I
know,
do like this story's going to be involving Harper Row though,
we're
and
always
Leslie Thompson.
we're always going to get these types of one shots though for characters. I don't think it doesn't operate under this assumption where we have to give Punchline a one shot, therefore we have to cancel Supergirl. So take away Supergirl so we can make Punchline. It doesn't really
Yeah.
work like that. So
It's not instead of
no.
most of the time, but this is just one where I'm like, I don't really know how much I want this either. But not that I'm not salty about it being instead of Supergirl, for example.
Yeah, and I do think because she's connected to Joker, I think there's a lot of again, much like people complain there's too many Bat books, I think Joker gets the same kind of heat. So I think because Punchline's related to Joker, there's an extra bit of heat that comes from that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I'm super excited for this. I think it'll be fine. I'm sure, given the creators involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with Sam Johns, but Tynan's obviously presumably plotting, and Sam Johns doing the script, I would assume. Maker and Dolfo, I really like her art. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then we got Batman 102 and 103, which
with some nice artists.
Yeah, Piggy Lane and Danny Miki on both books. Notably, not Gillen March, which is the best thing. Both covers featuring the Ghostmaker heavily, so obviously we're going to get a lot of Ghostmaker stuff post Joker War.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, he's try to do something different. I do appreciate the samurai style trousers he's got there, the sort of that baggy samurai stuff.
Yeah, he's got the cloak, and I actually really like the design. I like him being all in white as opposed to the black. I think it looks good.
That's interesting. Then we have some of these one shots, which I think we mentioned last week.
We mentioned these two, yeah.
Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Hush issue 1, and Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Flashpoint issue 1. So we won't dwell on them. They're both coming out in November. We have Deceased Dead Planet issue 5, 5 of 7 from the Tom Taylor book. So yeah, not much to say there. Death Metal issue 5, of course, is coming out. Notably, Newsarama scared the shit out of everyone this week for about 5 minutes on Twitter because they said this was the final issue. And we're like, wait a minute, it was maybe 7 issues.
And then these solicits do confirm 5 of 7.
Well, even before that, like Newsarama took down their article and deleted their tweet and reworded it.
Good.
So even before the solicits, we knew it was a mistake. It was just them making a boo-boo. But so you got that. You got a couple of other one shots to go along with this. You get Death Metal, the Multiverse Who Laughs issue 1. I'll admit that title makes me wince a little bit. It's a bit stupid.
But there's the creative team on it is kind of not bad. Well, at least on the writers.
Well, you say creative team. It's another one of these anthology style. Yeah. So we have a whole lot of short stories coming in this. Seemingly, we got Amanda Conner, notably Patton Oswalt is in there. Jimmy Palmiotti, Scott Snyder, Brandon Thomas, James Taylor IV, and Joshua Williamson. With art by Chad Hardin and others. I'm assuming a lot more others.
Yeah, Chad Hardin, I assume his story as well is with Connor and Palmiotti because he worked a lot with them on their Harley Quinn run.
Yeah, it's just funny. They gave us like 8 writers and then this one artist and more.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more. And then we got Death Metal Infinite Hours Extreme, which has Lobo on the front cover.
Yeah. Oh, we should probably mention what these are in general. Like that last one, just the basic premise. It mentions that the Batman Who Laughs with his new powers has created a collection of 52 evil worlds, and this is just a look at some of them.
Not super stoked by the concept of it. Some of these one shots are more exciting than others.
I'm less excited after the one we had last week too.
I wasn't. I was actually kind of positive on that one shot, to be honest. It
was fine. I'm like, I don't need 12 of these.
I still don't like the concept of this one, though. I was surprisingly into that last one, though, including the Riley Roosevelt one, which is the most surprising part. And then this second one here, Infinite Hour Extreme, Frank Thierry, Becky Cloonan, and others writing with Dale Eaglesham and others on art. So this one sounds like it's less of an anthology and more of just a longer story. So again, both $6, both 48 pages.
I think it's still an anthology. It's Lobo telling stories.
Okay. Then we have Justice League 56 and 57, both still metal tie-ins. So
I think it's the last of the metal tie-ins, or at least the last of this arc of metal tie-ins, unless there's more to come after, which who knows.
Then we have Sweet Tooth, The Return, issue 1. Jeff Lemire's coming back for a 6-issue mini, following up his 40-issue run on Sweet Tooth. This is a Black Label book.
I think it's actually worth knowing that it's not a sequel or anything like that. It's not a follow-up. He's describing it as a reimagining of the Sweet Tooth mythology.
Oh, I just meant follow-up in the sense that he's returning to Sweet Tooth. I didn't mean anything about
No,
the actual...
I know what you meant, but I think just for people listening.
Yeah. Strange Adventures Director's Cut issue 1 for people who buy director's cuts of books.
I assume means we might not be getting an issue this month.
There's not one in the Solicits, no.
Yeah, that'll be why. So instead of just having a complete skip month, they'll throw this out instead. But people like these, so...
Yeah, it's a shame because they had that extra time because of the shutdown to get ahead, so I would have hoped that we wouldn't have any skip months because of that, but here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. American Vampire 1976, issue 2 of 9, that is. So, yeah, the returning finale to the American Vampire saga by Snyder and Albuquerque.
Watch for the dollar comic American Vampire issue 1 reprint coming soon.
I'm pretty sure it's literally later on in this.
That's literally how the solicit for that ends, and I just thought that's a bit weird.
We have Batman White Knight Presents Harley Quinn issue 2. I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot this existed. I forgot that issue 1 was in the last solicits. I got to this and went, wait, what? What's this? I was like,
I've kind of just chosen to ignore all of these and just been like, well, forget all about
them. So that's kind of weird. But yeah, so that's coming out in November. And then we have Rorschach issue 2, of course. The other Tom King Prestige 12-issue book. Maybe that's why they feel they can take a month off. Is we've got 2 of these going now, so one can take a month off here or there because the other one's going. Yeah. Maybe that's their logic. And then we got Wonder Woman 766 and 767.
What a cover that is for 766 that they're showing.
Very pretty, yeah. We got it's a Middleton cover. Sorry, it's a Marquez cover, sorry. The variants by Middleton.
Variants by Middleton, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, though, that one.
Is. So you got, obviously Tamaki still on both issues. Steve Pugh's on the art of the first one, and then the second one is Rafa Sandoval and Jordi Tarragona. So, yeah, well, obviously we could have Janin on every issue, so it'll be interesting to see how the second arc deals with this. So curious. We got a couple of those young adult graphic novels next.
Yeah, I noticed that the House of L1 is written by Claudia Gray, who has written one of my favorite Star Wars books in recent years. So I'm actually very excited for this one.
So it'll probably be trash, is what you're saying.
Hey, she did a phenomenal retelling of Romeo and Juliet in the Star Wars universe, and it's fantastic. It's called Lost Stars. Everyone should go check it out.
Forget probably. It's definitely going to be trash. Shakespeare mixed with Star Wars is like my hellish nightmare come to life.
It really is, isn't it, for you?
House of L book 1, The Shadow Threat is the name of that one. Then we also have We Found a Monster, which... Yeah, what is this?
I think Kirk Scruggs, who's done this, I think he did that Swamp Thing, like the Spiral Diary one, where it was kind of like a kid's book sort of thing.
Okay.
I remember that one being a thing.
Is this completely original characters? Because I looked at the cover and went, wait, I don't recognize anything on this cover.
I think it is.
Yeah, this is all original characters.
Yeah. Frankenstein, a werewolf. Yeah.
I mean, no, those in particular are original, but you know what I mean. Like, there's no DC characters in here.
Right. There's an umbrella with a face on it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, sure. So there you go. There we have Action Comics 1027, and John Romita Jr.'s Reign of Terror will just never end, apparently.
He's on it till Bendis ends. You know that now, right? Just accept that, and then you'll stop being disappointed every single month.
Nope, I'm going to be disappointed every single month. And the worst part is that they're giving me a Gary Frank variant, apparently, which...
Yeah, I can't see it yet, but I'm sure it's phenomenal.
I'm sure it's great, which is just going to hurt me. But, I mean, Klaus Jansson's also on art, but doesn't matter.
He has been the whole time, right? He works with Romita and does a lot of stuff with him, I think.
I don't know if he's been on every issue, but regardless, it's JRJR. I'm upset about it. So there's a lot of Super Family characters popping up in this issue, apparently, which is cool, but they're all going to be drawn by him, so it almost doesn't matter.
They're all going to be butchered.
Superman 27, more Bendis Superman, not much to say. Aquaman 65, of course, is somewhat notable. It does not say final issue, so it's worth mentioning this may not actually be cancelled, but it is the end of Kelly Sue DeConnick's run, which we actually kind of had hints for last month as well. So I would expect this probably will get cancelled. I'm surprised it isn't the final issue.
I would suspect it's actually an error that it's not, for two reasons. I mean, it says here, a finale that'll amaze you, which implies, so it's definitely the end of the story, which we knew anyway. But more on just what Kelly Sue said, because people are obviously asking about this on Twitter. So I'll just address it here. Her story was not cancelled. She finished. She'd actually planned to finish a little while ago. And the reason we actually have the 2-issue fill-in that we've got at the minute is basically when the shutdown all happened and she was stuck at home with the kids and they're not at school, and she couldn't get enough work done and fell behind. And DC graciously found someone to do a fill in and let her finish the story a few months later than she had planned. But she said her only regret is that there's no one for her to pass the torch on to, which implies to me that there isn't another team starting right after.
When did she start? It was around 50, wasn't it?
It was just after 50, I think.
So yeah, so ultimately then, if you take out those fill-ins, it would have been about a 12-issue run then.
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
Which is actually, it feels like it's been longer than that.
It feels a lot longer, yeah, because it feels like...
In a good way, though, not in a bad way.
I think it's because it'll be like 3 or 4 full arcs, because we had the island, the old god stuff, and then we had the Amnesty Bay bit, and then we had the bit with Mecha Manta and kind of at the end of that. And then we've had all the, in Atlantis stuff.
Yeah. Maybe more.
It felt like quite a lot. Maybe it's been longer. But
yeah, weird. But regardless... Yeah, because it was like 53 or 54, isn't it?
I thought it was as well.
So there's something off here with the number. Anyway, doesn't matter. So obviously we've been enjoying the run, though. It's sad to see it end. Aquaman's a sort of character, unfortunately, that I don't think sells as well. Certainly not as the big characters. So I mean, maybe he will be a casualty. I mean, he went a long time without a book before the New 52. It was Jeff Johns who kind of gave him the podium to stand on and say, hey, he can anchor his own book, and he has done for almost 10 years. But I can totally see Aquaman not having a solo book after whatever comes next. I totally can. It's a shame, but
and I think it would be a shame given the state of where they're leaving it. With the child and the marriage, everything kind of at the moment.
Yeah. Batman Beyond 49, not a final issue. That book just keeps going.
Of all the things to keep going.
All the things. Batman's Grave issue 12, so that's wrapping up its 12-issue story. We have Batman Superman 14, which, I kind of expect this to go relatively young. I don't expect this to last super long. But
it depends. It might actually sell fairly well just based on the name.
It might, yeah. But I've been enjoying that book, though, so it's not a complaint by any means. Yeah. You got Batman The Adventure Continues issue 6, more of those animated universe continuations. Same with the Batman DC Classics, the Batman Adventures issue 6, which I assume, is that a reprint or is that just
a reprint? Yeah.
We got Catwoman 27 with the new team. I like that cover actually with the truck or the van.
It's a very nice Joel Jones cover.
Got Detective Comics 1030 and 1031. Tamaki.
Oh man, look at the art.
Bilkis Evely. I have been constantly mildly tempted to go back and just sort of catch up with Detective when I'm in the mood to read some comics.
And then you tell me you got art, but usually I'm like, oh man, that's so nice.
But then that's more Bat books, and then I'm playing into we're supporting too many Bat books nonsense.
You are, and then we're just terrible people.
The Dreaming Waking Hours issue 4. We got The Flash 765 and 766. We have Kevin Schnick on writing. Sorry, was that the same writer as the last 2 issues? I can't remember. It was so forgettable.
It is. I will say I might expect another team the following month, though. Maybe to be announced at Fandom, because it does say in the final showdown with Dr. Alchemy in the is the 4th issue of this. Maybe
767 is going to be the start of whoever the new run is.
Very possible.
I could see it. I could see whoever's taking it. We got Green Lantern season 2 issue 9, Hawkman issue 29, which is the final issue of Hawkman, and
I am fuming about this given the ending of this last issue. I mean, I'll talk about it more when we get there, but the last 2 pages or page tease of this last issue, I'm like, God damn it! I want a whole another 24 issue run from this point right now, bastards.
Honestly, Hawkman being the level he is, character-wise, kind of in that similar, but probably lesser so to Aquaman in terms of popularity. 29 issues ain't a bad one for him these days.
Sure, no.
When so many characters can't even sustain like 12 issue books now.
Well, I agree. It's not bad, and it's not even necessarily that surprising, but it hurts. This is one of those books that has me and Matt have been saying, this has been one of the best books DC have been publishing for the last 2.5 years. And it hurts that it's going.
So that's Hawkman 29. We have Hellblazer Rise and Fall issue 2, second issue of Tom Taylor's book. Hey, a Hellblazer book that I might like. So that's coming out in November. But unfortunately, if you're a Hellblazer fan, John Constantine Hellblazer issue 12 is the final issue of that series.
And Cy Spurrier, who's the writer, was a little disappointed. He said, it was always written as kind of 6-issue arcs, or 12 issues with the chance for extensions at the end of each one.
Mm-hmm.
So it will have a ending enough, I think. But he was disappointed not to get the extension, as opposed to, Aquaman, for example, where we knew it was coming, and what are the other ones that we'll get to?
Again, it just makes me look at the line and say, yeah, there's a lot of characters who once upon a time could have hundreds of issues in a run, now just don't sell enough to.
You look at that original Hellblazer run; it's 300 issues plus extras.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that characters like this will just be in minis and maxi series from now on, and maybe that's okay. But part of you do wants the long run. We got Joker Harley Criminal Sanity issue 6. Which I thought the cover to this looks a little bit less like this book has done. I don't know if that's just because it's a bit more stylized and colourful.
I can still see it when I look at her face.
Yeah, but it stuck out to me. But it's been a bit more vivid. But that's issue 6 of 8. Wasn't this originally 9 issues?
It might have been.
I could have sworn it was meant to be 9 issues because I remember always joking it was meant to be 9 monthly issues and how that was.
This is one of those books that I'd forgotten about, and while I know I'll probably like it once I read the next issue, my enthusiasm for it right now is kind of low, in that it's been a while since the last issue, because we just had that case file issue that was just kind of nothing. Honestly,
if it has been reduced from 9 to 8 issues, honestly, that's not a huge deal, especially when right now, like, they're halfway through creating it. Like, they can rework the rest of it to fit into one less issue.
Especially as it's every other month.
Yeah. So I suspect that even if it has been reduced, it just means that maybe the last couple issues will be tighter because of it, and we'll see. Maybe they were going too long before. Justice League Dark issue 28 is next, which does not say final issue, but Matt did come running to the chat this week saying, is Dark been cancelled too? Because things been said on Twitter?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. Ramvi definitely mentioned it's the end of his story on Twitter. It's a shame. He did say, though, that there are plans in the works, because someone asked him, will there be a new team coming up? Will there be something else after? And he said, there's stuff in the works. I don't know if that's just going to be a new issue 1. Again, this is another one where the ending talks about, at the end of the Solicit, talks about explosive ending, where I kind of feel like, did they forget the final issue tag on some of these Solicits, like the Aquaman
Justice League Dark's another one where, like Hawkman, I can see it doing about, 30 issues, give or take, and that being it. So, and I know people like it. This is not me saying that it should get cancelled because I'm not into it. I'm saying that it feels like the sort of thing that has that amount of life in it, and then unfortunately just doesn't have the sales to sustain giant long runs.
I'm just looking. One of the books that we know for sure is cancelled does have the final issue tag, so it would be weird for them to have forgotten it on just a couple.
No, most of them do. Most of the ones that we know for sure are cancelled do have the tag. It's just like Justice League Dark and what was the other one we're talking about? Aquaman. Both just feel that they're ending, even if it doesn't say so. It's kind of interesting. I get The Last God issue 10, which is the Black Label book. It's been going for a while. Legion of Superheroes issue 11's coming out. Not much to really say there, I don't think. Cover's nice. So do that. Looney Tunes 257. The order of this one's really weird, by the way. The Solicits.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Mad Magazine issue 17. Metal Men issue 12, final issue of that series.
Actually, a really great cover.
It's the swan song for Dan Diddy with DC Comics. His final Metal Man issue. And then we got Nightwing issue 76, what is full on Nightwing, Dick Grayson now. to the point where I'm almost wondering, like, when do I maybe jump in to Nightwing? Like,
I feel at this point I kind of have to wait for a new team.
I could see that. Though I think there's going to be a temptation. Though once it happens in Batman, so that his own book will also have switched. There's a temptation to do it, but yeah, if it's going to be dealing with threads from like his time as Rick, then
I think it is based off this character who's on the cover with him, and also the fact that it's still the solicit for this issue is KG Beast coming back for him. I'm like, really? We're still dealing with KG Beast?
I mean, well, I get the impression that KG Beast has not really been around that much since what happened to him.
No, probably not. But just the idea of the first thing that we're doing when Dick's back is KG Beast is a bit weird for me to jump in on that.
Oh, to jump in, sure. I don't think it's weird from a story decision point of view, though. I get it. I get why that's the first thing that they deal with. Hey, I got this. This is at 76 issues, which, to be honest, even though we love Dick Grayson, he's the sort of character that wouldn't surprise me if he could only have like a 30-issue run before it dies. So the fact that he's gotten to 76 is, especially through this terrible period where everyone hates it.
Yeah, but do you know what's worse?
What?
The next book getting over 50 issues and still going with a new writer.
The question is David going to make you read Red Hood Outlaw issue 51 now that it's not Liddell? Now that it's Sean Martin Burrow.
Martinborough?
Yeah, Martinborough.
Yeah.
I second guess myself as like, do I say it like I would say?
It's because there's no extra O between the B and the R.
Yeah.
So it's just Martinborough.
Martinborough. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I went into Scottish mode there. I was like, I don't know if it is though. I don't know if I should go into Scottish mode for this.
Yeah, I have no idea who this writer is. Not familiar at all.
Not me. Tony Akins is on the art.
Tony Akins is okay.
He's not bad.
I'm mostly familiar with him from filling in on Wonder Woman for Cliff Chang, and a little unfair because a lot of people can't stand up to Cliff Chang, but he's not bad. And then a really nice Dan Mora cover. Yeah,
so look forward to maybe Connor reading that if David makes him.
Hey, maybe you'll want to read it. You never know. This could be a solid 10 out of 10. This could be a standout amazing issue for all you know.
I'm good.
I'm just saying, you don't know.
Also, I was incorrect. Earlier on, I was saying the Dollar Comics later on the Solicits. No, it's a different Dollar Comic. There's a Dollar Comic Sandman reprint next. The one that was teasing for whatever else we're talking about, I'm sure will be next month.
It was American Vampire.
There you go. I'm sure that'll be next month's Solicits. Suicide Squad issue 11, which is the final issue. This is the one that hurts the most. I mean, maybe not. I mean, maybe you care about Hawkman more, but this was the one out of when they announced the list. Because I'll just Teen Titans' final issue, Young Justice is a final Justice. Young Justice is also the final issue, which are the next two Solicits. That's Teen Titans 47 and Young Justice 20. Out of the list, Hawkman I looked at and went, well, about 30 issues, 29 in that case. That sounds about right for what that character can maybe support these days, just based on what other books are getting cancelled and whatnot. Young Justice, even though it's very readable, has basically done nothing in its story since it started. I'm surprised
it still has as much an audience as it does.
So if you told me back when it was announced and I was looking forward to issue 1 that it was going to be cancelled at 20, I'd have probably been livid. But the truth is, I'm just kind of like,
It
sure.
says a lot. The last couple of issues, I've been listening to what you're saying. You've not been that into it. And I think I remember asking you, whenever it was last issue or the one before, are you considering dropping it? And you kind of went, no, probably not.
It's fine. Like, it's very readable. But I'm not that upset about it being cancelled because ultimately it wasn't really accomplishing much and kind of felt like a hollow attempt. And then Teen Titans, that feels like it's just been running on this weird sideline fumes for ages. The fact that this is up at issue 47, they switched to this new direction, this Robbie Thompson run. They switched to this at it was like around issue 20 or something like that. They did this way back at the start of the 20s. So this has been.
We had another run in the middle of that though. I'm sure there was someone else for a bit.
Was there? I don't know.
I think there was around.
I'm talking about the transition from Percy to over this team of characters, right? Regardless of who the writer is.
Sure.
Is really what I mean. Is that they this weird set of new characters mixed with Wallace and whoever. It's felt like this weird side thing, and maybe some people have been enjoying it, but like it went. I was expecting final issue on this for the last 2 years, and it just never happened. So this was not a surprise. This was like, yes, if you'd asked me to predict last month which books I thought were going to get cancelled, Teen Titans would have been at the top of the list. It'd have been one of
No,
the.
that's not fair. Just last month, Justice League Odyssey would have been at the top of the list.
Well, yeah, but when I was making predictions last month, that'd already been cancelled.
True.
So that was gone. So, but yeah, so this wasn't the one that was a surprise. The point I'm getting to here is that of the 4 or 5 that were sort of confirmed cancelled immediately when the Solicits came out, Suicide Squad was the one that didn't make sense to me. It was the one that was surprising, and it was definitely the one that hurt the most. But me being hurt because I love the book is irrelevant to what I'm about to say here. This is just purely based on it's only on issue 11. A lot of buzz. People seem to be talking about it. Even if it can't
sales,
sustain,
from what we can tell.
Yeah, even if it can't sustain like a long 50 issue run, it does seem weird that it's not at least getting to the 20s. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the one that is a bit weird. Like, was this like cancelled before its time? But luckily, Taylor and Co came out and basically cleared up and said that it was kind of always meant. This is the end of the story. It's not like being cut off, and it was always kind of meant to be like a maxi series anyway. It's a bit of a dirty tactic because this is something Marvel do a lot, where they claim something's an ongoing, and then turns out it was only a 6-issue mini.
Yeah, I never got this because I think, especially as over the last couple of years, DC have proven with, Mr. Miracle and, for example, and, Strange Adventures, that 12 issue maxis, they can sell better than half the main line.
Do I think it might have been? I think it was always intended to be an 11, 12, I mean, it's 11 issues now, but it was always meant to be this story with this team. And I think the reason why it wasn't officially a maxi series is because they were considering that a new creative team would continue it with the numbering, and it would just continue to be a Suicide Squad book afterwards. But they've decided against doing that. But the actual intent of Tom King's story was always going to be... Sorry, Tom Taylor's story was always going to be these 11 issues. And it makes sense because Tom Taylor did immediately start teasing, hey, it's not the last you're going to see of some of these characters.
He specifically talks about the Revolutionaries as a group. So
not the Suicide Squad characters. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it that if we're going to have these characters on this team, the Revolutionaries, continuing in some way, once this story with Deadshot and Harley and like who's behind the Suicide Squad is done, it does kind of make sense that it wouldn't be in a Suicide Squad book anymore, because it wouldn't be a Suicide Squad story at that point anymore. Because
I agree. Yeah.
They're their own thing. So
best case scenario here is next week at Fandom they announce the Revolutionaries book, whatever they end up calling that.
Yeah, the sad part of that is I don't expect that to last long. So I would actually hope they just say it's a 12-issue book and it's just going to be 12 issues. Yeah. Taylor's writing that.
Whatever it is, just announce it mini, maxi, whatever.
Or hey, or even if it ends up being a part of like another big. So in this case, it was like tied to Suicide Squad. What if their next story's tied to whatever?
I think DC has shown, especially with Tom Taylor, flexibility with ongoing minis.
Mm-hmm.
I use that term very specifically as ongoing minis, in that it's the series of minis that kind of build up into one ongoing story.
Yeah, Deceased.
It's what we've been having with Deceased.
Deceased has different names, but it essentially is an ongoing.
It is. It's a way of every 6 issues or so you get, okay, here's a new number 1 to get the bump in. It gives you a chance to market it again, and here's a new jumping on point if it even is. But I mean, it's a model that Dark Horse used for decades at this point with Hellboy and Star Wars when Dark Horse had that license, and I believe
and
Alien and Predator.
Yeah, Alien, Predator, all their big books, which
a lot of that,
Disney have taken them all away now, but all of those books they had.
But Dark Horse were using this model for decades, and it seemed to work quite well for them. I'm surprised it's taken as long as it has to catch on elsewhere, frankly.
So I actually didn't think about this in advance, but just through talking about it there, that is my official guess. My official guess is this was always going to be an 11-issue run, but it wasn't marketed as a maxi or miniseries because DC intended to have it continue numbering with a new team afterwards, and they've just changed their mind and aren't doing that. That's my guess. That is my.
I actually I was tweeting with Hill last week, or last month when Outsiders was cancelled.
Bryan Hill,
yeah. Sorry, I forgot we also have Joe. But in this context, sure, for Outsiders, and he was saying about how he didn't know how many issues he was going to do. Originally, he only wanted 12, and they kind of talked him into doing a few extra before they've obviously cancelled it. And he goes, people were asking, well, why not announce it as a 12-issue series? He's like, I don't know. That was DC's decision. And I did, say, is there a chance that it was because, well, hey, if it's a great smash hit, runaway success with all the sales, they can just carry on with a new audience after, and they've got, an inbuilt audience ready buying it. And he's like, yeah, could well be the case. I get why they want that, because easier than marketing a whole new book if you've already got the audience. If you don't have the audience, especially for something like Revolutionaries here, then just the the ongoing minis probably works out better, which is where it might go from now on, as opposed to what we started in Suicide Squad.
I do enjoy in the window though if it'll be tied to another property, like, and just in the way that this was like a Suicide Squad tie.
It's possible, but I think it's less necessary. I think they, over the course of 11 issues, they've established an audience.
Oh, for sure.
That will
I don't think
follow them to the next book.
I don't think it's necessary. I'm just thinking it could be like an interesting mechanic where you always tell like their next chapter through the lens of a different corner of the DCU. Whether it's something we can predict or can, like, what if what if they're all in space next time? But it's like a it's a Green Lantern story, but the Revolutionaries are there and they're with. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they don't.
No,
really care
it was quite an
Earth.
extreme example.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. I think a reason why they wouldn't is you might get the people who just want these characters. The people who love Airy and Wink are the two standouts from what I see on social media.
Oh, come on, Chaos Kitten's the best. That's not.
Well, I did not give my own personal opinion there. I gave of what I see. But people want to see them, not they don't want in your example, they don't want a Green Lantern book and that happens to feature the Revolutionaries. They want a Revolutionaries book.
Sure. I mean, I do. I want a Revolutionaries book. I'll take it at this point, as long as Taylor's writing it.
That's, I mean, I'd say the important thing. That's the it's not the only important thing, I guess.
It could be a goddamn Lobo book with the Revolutionaries, as long as Taylor's writing it, I'm on board.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or dare I say Jason Todd.
You would.
So yeah, so that is my official guess. I didn't realize I'd have such a strong opinion as to why it's worked out this way, rather than it being a mischievous thing where they didn't want to tell us. Because I think DC haven't really had a history of trying to deceive us with, is this a mini or an ongoing? I think it was about having the option of continuing, but of course things have changed since then, or they've just decided not to for whatever reason. And that's fine. So no, and if this ensures there's going to be more Tom Taylor stuff soon, which I think it does, given that he's teasing more stuff with the characters.
I think he's scheduled to appear in some capacity at Fandom. So
yeah, so hopefully we'll get a slew of announcements. It's one of these things where, like, immediately they announced the other history of DCU, and they announced, more fandom panels and stuff.
Honestly,
I think. Let me finish. I think if next week, and it won't be next week on the podcast because fandom starts when we record. But so in 2 weeks in the podcast, if we sit here and we have like 10 new books to talk about, all of a sudden all the fear mongering from the last few days is going to look a little silly. Not completely silly because there are still long-term effects that could very much be a problem. But all of the instant, everything's burning down, all of a sudden just feels stupid. Anyway, what were you going to say?
I'll just say I think the only reason we got other history of the DCU announced, when we did,
Solicits.
is because Solicits, it was coming out in November. If they could have got away with waiting to Fandom, they'd have just started it with all those announcements, I'm sure.
Yeah, I suspect the December Solicits is going to be quite interesting, although maybe not at the time because most of the interesting stuff we'll already know about from Fandom, I suspect.
I'm not even sure how much of the Fandom announcements will be coming in December. They might not be till January, February, and we're just announcing them at Fandom because it's the big event.
Very possibly. And of course, there's a chance that we'll come out next week and have like almost no comic book news. It's all movie and TV stuff. In fact, that was one of the other things that we didn't really mention is that there was people like speculating when all this announcements were happening on Monday that could Fandom even happen now? Of course it can. I mean, first of all, 90% of it's movie and TV related, and that ain't changing. Like, all those movies and TV shows are still happening, even if the comic books all tank. Like, those things are still happening. I wouldn't worry about that. So
yeah,
it is what it is. So we're almost done with the Solicits. Or no, we are done with Solicits. That was the last one. Young Justice was the last one. So
was that the last one? Okay.
Yeah. Obviously not including the hardcovers and whatnot, but tis what it is. So yeah, there you go. November Solicits. Obviously, it was an eventful month.
They do definitely feel trimmed down.
What the
Solicits in general,
as a whole?
the
Okay,
size
yeah.
of them, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. They definitely do. I don't actually think that's a bad thing per se. Like it just kind of depends what the focus is. I mean, if we get to the point in like say April, May next year, and the solicits are like 50% Batman, and then another 35% Superman and Wonder Woman, and then there's like 15% of other stuff at the end. Like that will feel depressing.
Yeah, it will.
But we'll have to cross these things as we come to them. Well then, without further ado, we do have some comic books to actually talk about. this
Apparently.
Yeah, in fact, it's worth mentioning next week is a very quiet week. I know there's a question or two already sent to the email actually, just for whenever we needed it. We'll definitely be using that next week. There'll be a lot of questions requests next week, so look for that. And we might get a couple of little things from fandom if there's anything right at the start of it, but for the most part, everything's going to be for the following week. So next week will be Question City. But yes, so Dark Knights Death Metal issue 3, Scott Snyder writing with Greg Capullo on the art. So third issue of our big event series, the Anti-Crisis, as we're dubbing it. I'm pretty solid.
As we're dubbing it, like we coined that.
Well, do the universal we. I don't mean we as a podcast.
Sounded a lot like you did.
No, universal we. So yeah, it's basically the next part of the plan. It's Wonder Woman and co going to Apocalypse to rescue Superman and the other heroes, and we see the crashed ship at the start. You know, the head of the Super Batman Wonder Woman rocket ship. I don't know what the correct term is.
With Silver Surfer, Batman essentially, Patrocitus, which I thought was kind of great, and then Brainiac Batman.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Silver Surfer, you're in the wrong company, but I see what you're saying. You're just using that.
No, he is Silver Surfer.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he is. It's just Batman.
But for legal reasons, they can't say he's Silver Bat Surfer.
I actually thought it was very notable they didn't name him.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, they gave, the Collector for the Brainiac one, and Batrocitus, the Silver Surfer one. We're not even touching that. Not going near it.
Legally, there's a lot of issues there. So you have Wonder Woman, Batman, and Harley. Riding in with Swamp Thing as well. There's basically just a head right now.
He's a shield right now for Wonder Woman. He's a mallet later for Harley.
And so Batside, is that what they called him?
I think so.
Yes. Batside is torturing Superman. He's got this big device where Superman's on this exercise bike where eventually all the kryptonite like glass that's beaming all this different light at him is going to break down, and once he does break down, all the anti-life equation is going to infect him, and he'll become a super scythe. That makes any sense. The characters come in, and obviously we have the big fight scenes, and we do the whole Final Crisis reference where Batside pulls out a gun that's kind of like the one that Batman used in Final Crisis, and so this is going to erase him from the timeline. And he seems to use his Black Lantern ring to protect himself and Superman here.
He definitely uses it to protect Superman. I think there's more to himself.
Yeah, he glosses over it. He says something like bat protection or something like that.
No, I think there's actually something very noble. I think this is an intentional mystery, because he says, bat blocker, I come prepared, I'm
bat
fine.
Blocker, yeah, that was it.
And then the panel after he says that, Superman turns to him and goes, Bruce. He's like, and he goes, don't. And he goes, and Superman says, fine, but she doesn't know the truth about you, which implies that there is actually some sort of mystery to how he survived this, and fine, not just bat blocker, as he says.
Yeah, but it stuck out to me just how generic. It wasn't like a proper explanation. It was just kind of, go with it for now.
I agree, and that's the sort of one where I'll let things slide in events like this. That one did stick out, and I was like on the verge of calling it out. And then the very next panel was, okay, no, there's actually something going on here. It's not bat blocker, as he says.
Yeah, Lobo is in the fifth dimension, killing imps as far as I can see. Come back to that later. Robin King shows up in the Crypt of Heroes, where Wally and the other, Jay's there, Wildcat's there, GSA, and yeah, basically they have to go on the run because the Darkest Night's coming for them. There is a really over the top description though. Robin King talks about what he did to Flash on his Earth, or at least one Earth, where he had he had like his dead mother's like arms, flailing out of a flash ring or something. It was something really dark.
Yeah, he dug up Barry's dead mom, covered her remains in a speed force cancelling toxin that liquefies Flash's muscles, and then stuffed her rotting corpse into a flash ring so that when it pops out, she was just flailing all over the place. That's
it was particularly
intense.
dark, yeah. Basically, the Flashes go on the run. Me and the GSA are basically left to die. So that's a bit of a,
bit of a dick move.
Yeah, because you interested GSA and it was all exciting. And
to be fair, Jay's with them.
But
and I think we will still cut back from GSA.
Well, other than Jay, like the rest are all presumably dead, or maybe
I don't know about that because the Darkest Night chases the Flashes.
Yeah, but the Robin King's still with them.
Well, but they all escape, don't they? They go through. I don't know if the rest of them do escape, but okay, the rest of them might be able to take on Robin King. I don't know.
They may be. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they do with this. So yeah, he's chasing them through what's left of the Speed Force, and they're barely keeping ahead. They keep running, but the Speed Force is weakening.
Yeah,
so I
love the visuals on the bottom panel there.
It just kind of ends with him still in pursuit. He's like, hey, the second you slow down just a smidge, I'm going to be there. So sort of cliffhanger. Back in Apocalypse, Superman rips open basically the cell where all the other heroes are. So Nightwing's in there, all the Green Lanterns.
Not Simon.
All the Earth Green Lanterns except Simon, but the rest of them are there. Batgirl, notably in her Burnside outfit, which I thought was
that stood out to me as well. I noticed that.
A bit odd. Supergirl's in there. Booster. Oh, sorry, not Booster. It's Animal Man. Booster's there too.
Behind him as well. You got Blue Beetle in there as well. Steel, Firestorm, Black Lightning.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that is at the very back left, behind Green Arrow and Canary.
Behind Green Arrow and Canary. Where's Green Arrow and Canary?
Just very back left.
Mr. Terrific.
No, Mr. Terrific's over on the right next to the Green Lanterns.
Another Terrific.
I mean, fine. Well, I'll take it.
It's the white, the white, red, and black. I don't know. It's the Terrific's colors. So one of them.
No, I agree. I thought that as well at first, and then I saw Terrific over on the other side.
Where's Linya? She's not elsewhere. Could be her.
Could be. Yeah.
I don't know. So basically, what explains the plan. That some of them are going to have to go and destroy these human antennas. That is where Perpetua sucks in all over the crisis energy from the dark multiverses.
These are primed for one shots.
Yes, enjoy all the one shots you can get. So basically explains the plan, but essentially they're also here for the most powerful being that's going to help them. Obviously, Wally West is a big part of that, but then we have the return of Starro, Jarro, yes, I should use his proper name, who's doing hard time with the black and white stripes on. He's hitting rocks with a hammer. He's the proper prison time Jarro, and then Batman comes in and they reconnect, and it's,
I don't know, Jarro just go like Dad from a close up on the eye is like, I don't know, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It
landed. So basically, everyone agrees to what the rules are on the team. Jarro's going to cyclically block Wonder Woman's team from being detected from going into one of the dark multiverse worlds to essentially have their anti-crisis, and the rest are going to deal with taking down the antennas, and they all have a nice big high five moment. And that's kind of it. Then at the end of the book is Lobo. We finally see who's working with Lobo, who's given him orders. And that reveals is Lex Luthor.
Because of course it is.
Who's there at the end. He's got some scarring on his face. He's looking very Dr. Savannah almost, I was getting from this final page.
Oh, I could see that. If you took away the dialogue and put in saying it was Savannah, I'd believe it.
Yeah. Solid issue. I thought like I enjoy all the building for the plan. It's definitely not as exciting as an issue as the others. That's certainly not the first one. Mainly because it's mostly about just getting everyone in place and sort of saying, hey, this is what the plan is, this is what we're all going to do. That said, I do kind of appreciate that it is kind of simple. At least issues 2 and 3 have felt very simple. And I think one of the things that bogged down the first Metal a little bit was just how complex and insane it was trying to be it constantly. I think setting up a relatively simple plan here with all the teams is actually quite a good thing for the book overall. It makes for an issue that's not like a knockout of the park. It's just a fun, solid one. But
no, I get it. I'm a little concerned about next month because it's one shots month. It's not issue 4. I'm concerned about how integral those feel, though. Like they feel like they should have been, issues 4 and 5 almost, because the next 2 one shots we have next month are Trinity Crisis, which is Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman launching their attack, and also the other one is Speed Metal, which is it mentions Wally West with his powers are a target, but he's got the fastest backup alive. And I'm like, okay, so we're very much directly continuing both the major plot threads from this issue in the one shots.
You say that worries you. That makes me say, great. It means next one doesn't feel redundant.
No, it makes those issues feel more important, and that's good. But I hate that they are in other issues. They should be the main story, and I feel like that's a real problem.
I mean, we'll see to what extent. Like, is it the sort of thing when they do the collections later that those 2 are in the main collection with the main issues, and the rest are all just in like a sort of compendium, like side cut, hardcover, or did it get put with the side stuff, implying that they can be skipped potentially?
I don't know. Like the way where we are in the story and reading what those issues actually are, the only reason it seems to me that they're not the next issues is whoever's writing and drawing them. But it feels like they should be the next issues.
I mean, we'll see.
At least from where they've left off.
We'll even know that for sure when we read the issues next month. We'll know that's for sure when we read issue 4 the month after. So, I don't know. I don't care, basically. it's ultimately, I don't give a shit. What do you want from me? If anything, I'm happy about this because it means that these one-shots next month don't just feel like they're fill-ins for a month.
Yeah, but it really hurts when I could have done with, say, okay, one-shots, these are $6, $8, whatever they are. Like, I could skip some of these, save some money. And I'm like, okay, no, it's actually, I've got, instead of having 1 issue of Metal next month, I've got 2, is kind of the way it feels.
You could skip the Robin King one. That's the Riley Osmo one in a couple of months.
Oh, I was going to skip that anyway. I don't know when that is, but I wasn't going to read that.
No, I'm okay in the sense that I can actually be excited about them. They're important and not just here's some fluffy one shots to try and sell to more people.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Shall we go see what Matt thought of this here book?
We should. I mean, just before we do, I really liked the parademons, the Robin ones. What did they call it? Para-Robins? Them just doing, holy, I think, boom, holy kill, whatever it was, Batman.
They're doing the 60s. Yeah, they're doing the 60s style of Robin dialogue, but sort of demented. It's a nice touch.
And Harley Quinn being like, hey, Bat, even when you're evil, you got that branding on point.
Yeah. I had fun with it. It's kind of, it's a middle issue, but it wasn't like a bad Snyder middle issue with tons of exposition. It was actually kind of a nice, easy to follow, building up the story beats. I'm looking forward to kind of the... I appreciate that this book so far is that the issue 1 kind of ultimately revealed what they had to do in terms of a big plan. We have to do an anti-crisis. And then issue 2 explained it a bit more and sort of put the first parts in motion to like gathering the team. I like how simple it's been ultimately because I think the first Metal suffered from being too wacky and all over the place, and well, even though I enjoyed a lot of it, so I'm okay with that. Let's see what Matt said about the book here. Matt did send in his thoughts for each of the books since he's missing this week. Death Metal, pretty good advancement for the story. Robin King is kind of lame. I don't know, his story about what he did to Flash's mum might have been my favourite thing in the whole book.
I liked how pompous he was.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked how ridiculously dark he was, so I don't know if I agree with that. I don't like how it feels like the JSA was used for a cheap pop. Well, I kind of said that. Love the Superman on Apocalypse scenes. I don't know who's more insufferable, the Darkest Night or Batseed. I also feel like Capullo has been a bit more loose with the art and his style. Sometimes it reminds me of Mankey Gleason and the Grislier parts, and Matt gave it an 8 out of 10, which I guess will lead to Connor's rating.
I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I think I had a bit more fun with it, maybe.
That's fair. I think I will probably agree with Matt's score and give it 8 out of 10. I think it's pretty solid. Actually, I appreciate the simplicity of it. Maybe some of the, like, maybe the Lobo Luther stuff felt like it was kind of tacked into this issue. And maybe there's no place else to put it. Maybe you have to have that reveal now for what's coming next. But maybe it's just because we need to have a big reveal, so we'll put the Luther reveal at the end of this one. But otherwise, it's just kind of tacked on. So yeah, 10 for me. Wonder Woman issue 760. We have Mariko Tamaki writing with Mikel Janin on the art. Second issue in this run. And we have the confrontation with Max Lord, who's basically just kind of smug and just kind of shrugs it off and says, "Hey, I've been here. I've been under surveillance." Like,
so what you're saying is he's Max Lord.
Yeah, but he's like, "Oh, I haven't really done anything." And Wonder Woman's kind of freaked out by this. She talks to Etta about it, and Etta's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of weird stories coming out, and it's hard to tell which ones are just people like claiming to be confused or under mind control because they want to get out of their charges. But yeah, there are some that are kind of raising some alarm bells, and they're kind of similar to what you experienced. And we have some more advancement with the neighbor, kind of bonding and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed by this, given what we learned from Tamaki about this character. Just because I was so pleased with this stuff last issue, and it was probably my biggest compliment was, civilian human supporting cast. I love this stuff, and then it turns out she's actually just a future villain.
Yeah,
that's really disappointing.
I'm not as down on it as you are. You make it sound like the whole thing's ruined for you.
It took away a lot of what I felt was special about that first issue for me, in terms of the feeling of, oh, we're just setting up someone to be evil. It's that again. I thought we were getting supporting cast, and it's very disappointing for me.
Well, one, we may still get that in time, and two, I mean, I trust Tamaki, basically, is ultimately what it comes down to, and everything with the dialogue and the voices still works for me.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, not
also
quite exciting.
I feel like you should have given a spoiler warning for that, to be honest. I don't think you should have just said that, but
fair enough. It was on Twitter, and it's in Solicits. It's all out there. I didn't think it was too big a deal.
Yeah, people like to avoid stuff like that though sometimes. It's anyway. So they have them kind of bonding a little bit. And Wonder Woman has a big scene where there's again another example of someone doing something out of character, being mind controlled. There's a sort of bulldozer operator who ends up swinging the bulldozer into another building, and Wonder Woman has to like sort of, it's a great panel as well, actually, her blocking the actual bulldozer from hitting the building, and ends with her taking a photo with a kid, and then it gets weird. She wakes up, and immediately I sort of noticed, like, why is she wearing a costume? But that's okay.
In bed, and I think it's particularly notable because the last two issues have really shown us how much she goes out of her way to wear civvies.
Yeah,
right?
Normal. Yeah, she appears to be normal. So immediately it feels weird and wrong, which, and I think very quickly it's very obvious this is some kind of dream sequence or something akin to a dream sequence. And of course we have her being attacked. There's a lot of gorgeous red art of her like being chased by something. It turns out to be parademons. And we get this great 2-page spread of her like squaring up to the parademons, and this 2-page layout, all these vertical panels of her swiping and slashing.
I actually prefer the 2-page one before that, where it's her falling on the left and then the big, all the parademons. It's a gorgeous page.
Yeah, they're squaring off. Yeah, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And then, one final page of her saying, "You die," as she's holding up the shield. Like, it's a full page spread, all these big action things. And then you hear someone say, Dinah, can you hear me? Wake up, it's Etta, right? And the
Diana.
final... Sorry?
Diana.
What did I say?
Dinah.
Sorry. Yes, Diana. In the final page, she wakes up and realizes that what's happened to her is what's happened to everyone else. She has been believing, because one of the things that's been consistent with these like mind control situations, the driver from last issue is that she believed she was just driving to take her kid for ice cream and not into oncoming traffic. So here, what we've seen is we've seen what Wonder Woman thought she was doing. She thought she was fighting an army of parademons, but in actual fact, we see a bunch of soldiers that have been slashed by her, all lying on the ground. And it says, "What have I done?" That's the title of this issue, which they've saved to the end because it's big reveal.
It's a great moment. I love the idea of how well it set up the believing other things, so that we kind of knew what was going on. We didn't know what it was going to cut to, but we kind of knew something was happening because obviously we had the ice cream one. They mentioned the other story where someone stabbed a guy because he thought they were holding a guinea pig hostage.
Yeah,
and she's like, "Well, that's no reason to stab someone."
I think what works about this is that there's this kind of feeling of dread as she's like slashing all these parademons. You kind of you know not to trust it, and because of what the story's been, you have this kind of feeling of like, oh god. And that, I mean, it's almost like it almost could have been way darker. Like part of me was wondering, like, what if the final page is like she wakes up and she's in the middle of a playground and there's just kids everywhere, like, or something.
No, I'm with you. Like, honestly, there was a point in that sequence where with the parademons where I'm like, oh god, I hope this is a dream sequence.
Yeah. And I think that dread, I think, because the first half of the issue is fine. It's the fallout of what happened in issue one. It's building the neighbor stuff a little bit. It's having Etta come in, who we didn't really see in the first issue, gives it some of that greater context of the world, and Wonder Woman's supporting cast kind of filtering back in. But it's the back half of the issue. It's this nightmare, and then realizing what she's done. That is the point of this issue, and what it's what's memorable selling point is going to be.
Yeah.
But I think of this chapter, it's going to be this ending and what she's done. And I think it accomplishes that very well. And it just reassures me again that Tamaki's the right person to be continuing with this run. And obviously the art's fantastic. We talked about all the parademon fighting, all the layouts and full page spreads, 2-page spreads, all that. All that stuff looks great. Actually,
an absolutely gorgeous book. And
I really enjoyed the builders stuff as well, actually, since we're on it. So no, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I think it feels like it has such a direction. It feels like it knows exactly, like, Tamaki's got a place in mind where she wants to go with this. And this idea of Wonder Woman not being able to trust herself and how we're going to play with that, and her dealing with the guilt of this is already rich for so much drama. It doesn't feel like just the same old thing again.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good. I'm fairly confident on that.
And if it is Max Lord, and it may not be, like, we don't know this for sure. It could be him. It may not be. If it is Max Lord, it makes and if it's him, it re-solidifies him as one of the most evil, conniving bastards that there is in the DC universe. And if it isn't him, it sets up whoever new character or whoever as being evil and conniving. So it has a great effect on whoever it's setting up either way.
Yeah.
So, good stuff.
It's a great issue.
So Matt, what did he say about this then? So that said, Janin's still doing great work. Well, not as dynamic as the last issue, the action scenes are pretty fun, especially that parademon fight sequence. I have no idea what's going on with Max Lord, but I hope they don't make him sympathetic. I like Tamaki's voice for Diana. The panel with her taking the selfie was cool. I'm glad we're moved out of the Steve relationship stuff. That can be fun, but sometimes it steals the focus from the better Wonder Woman elements. And Matt gave it a 7.5, which I think is a little bit on the lower side, I would have said, for this.
Well, that's understandable, because I'm going to take the same approach I did on the last issue then, and take a half point above Matt and give it a straight 8.
I think that's more fair. I'm going to go a little bit. I'm going to say 8.5. I think the ending of this one's a knockout. It kind of like it has one purpose, it has one goal, and it achieves that goal.
Yeah, that last page is well, the last page, that last kind of sequence.
Yeah.
Culminating in the last page is fantastic.
Yeah. Really good stuff. I'm really, 2 issues in, I'm really into this run. I was expecting to be, admittedly, and because it's one of the big 3 characters, I at least have a bit of hope it'll stick around for a while. So,
yeah, you might get a year out of this one at least.
Hopefully,
but
more.
Double shipping, that's 24 issues.
Hey, hopefully more. If they want to give Tamaki a nice long run, because I feel like every run that I've hoped's been long recently has ended up not being remotely long. So
it's true.
I would very much like at least one of these things to pan out as a nice big long juicy 50-issue run or something.
Yeah.
If it's not big enough to fill an omnibus, then Don't
What's
waste
the
my
point?
time. Yeah, don't waste my time. So that is Wonder Woman. That'll take us on to The Flash. Oh, sorry. I actually skipped a book. I apologize. I skipped a book. Superman 24, which was supposed to be before Wonder Woman. My eyes just skipped over it. Uh, so Bryan Michael Bendis writing, of course, with Kevin Maguire and John Timms on the art. So this was kind of a middling issue for me.
I just want to interject here.
Yes.
Matt messaged me and said to insist that you gave the 2-page spread with Fate the appropriate amount of time. So make sure you do.
Okay. Yes. I mean, the fact that I don't even remember what page he's talking about
I'm sure it was what it was.
is a good side. I'm sure I'll know when I get to it. So
Yeah.
So I liked last issue quite a bit, but there was always a concern, at least from me, that I'm not as into the magic-y side of stuff. And interestingly, that's not really the problem with this issue. It does go a little bit like just bullshit magic exposition at certain points, but it's more just the entire thing's just this one kind of like stationary fight with this Xanadoth character that they introduced last issue. Because I like the build up last issue of the woman who was connected to it, and then this issue continues that where Bones at the DEO gives her a job, to trace down magic stuff, and we find out that she's kind of in there. She's like merged with this being, and she starts to sort of like also talk as well as the Xanadoth talking as well. So there's sort of like a dual dialogue at one point. There's a lot of 2-page spreads. There's a lot of like basically just bullshit magic mumbo jumbo talking about where Xanadoth comes from and how they can fight it and the weaknesses that Superman has and what they're going to do. There's a 2-page spread. I assume the one that Matt's talking about that kind of explains how Xanadoth came back and the connection to the agent. Where it sort of goes through all these different things. But that said, there's a couple of them. This book has a few 2-page
I didn't read it because there was too much on it. It was, 2 men in the Fate helmet on the left with a lot of vertical panels
not
across
that.
it.
No, not that. That's later in the book. Basically, Fate says Superman has the strength, so if they use his magic with his strength, they can fight him. I'll be honest, like, this issue is one of my least favorite types of comic book issues, in the sense that it's just a lot of mumbo jumbo that I struggle to remember any of by the time as soon as I finished reading it, I've forgotten most of what they said, and I don't really have good explanations as to what really happened in this book. But
So this is a thrilling little piece you've got for us then today.
So I mean, yeah, Superman puts the helmet on at one point and has a little bit extra added to his costume, so he's super Fate. I didn't care for it. I thought I rolled my eyes a little bit
I'm
and
shocked.
it sort of thought this is a bit gimmicky and whatever. And there's many combinations of characters that you can do that are equally gimmicky that I might like and say is cool or funny or
But
something.
you just hate magic.
I do hate magic. I don't think it's built up enough in this. It's just kind of like them talking back and forth while they're talking to Xanadoth and trying to figure out how to fight him. Because Xanadoth's whole thing is that he's the original, or he originally was a Lord of Chaos, and she was so bad that the Lords of Chaos and Order, for the one and only time, teamed up to banish this Xanadoth. And Xanadoth is slowly coming back using all these different magic items that are being collected to ultimately reappear into the world. But they actually win by the end. This is the thing. It's ended up only being a 2-issue little arc. Now, it is worth mentioning the agent who kind of comes back to being normal at the end. There is a cliffhanger at the end. There's a little tease of her in the hospital bed with the glowing eyes, implying that maybe Xanadoth's still in there. So it might actually be a thing that continues. Honestly, though, like, so much of this is focused on the magic stuff that it feels more like a Justice League Dark issue that guest stars Superman than a Superman issue that happens to feature Fate and other Justice League Dark stuff. So, while I actually quite enjoyed last issue for the most part, this issue felt like it was just mostly in one place, and not even a place. It's like it starts off in the Tower of Fate, but after that, it's just a lot of colors in the background. I mean, nothing has any meaning. There's no Like, I'm actually liking this even less the more I talk about it. I came out of this just been kind of middling on it, and then I'm like, I really don't like this issue.
Well, did Matt like it?
Let's find out, I suppose, shall we? Matt thought pretty solid issue. Yeah. Saying the Lord of I feel like some autocorrect has happened here because he said saying Lord of China's show up after dealing with the Lords of Order. I assume that's meant to be Chaos, and there was a typo.
I'm willing to take a reasonable guess that yes, Chaos was what it was supposed to say. It is Matt and his damn fat thumbs.
Yes,
that can't type.
After dealing with the Lords of Order and Justly Dark, feels off. Yeah, so something about this doesn't line up with Justly Dark, the book.
We had a whole thing with the Lords of Chaos and Order a couple of arcs ago.
But I like that Superman can go to Fate anytime he wants to let out without bothering him. Yeah, Fate, because if you remember, last issue was like Superman's therapy, which is what I liked about it. It was more human. It was more about what he's going through. This whole fight with this entity was just kind of whatever. Anyway, back to I forgot to even mention that because at the end Fate's like, hey, you can come back and talk anytime you want to. You've got someone you can speak to. And then Superman's like, I'll see you tomorrow.
It's a bit presumptuous.
So it's a nice message that even the world's greatest hero needs self-care from time to time. Yeah, I like that last issue too.
It's kind of what Heroes in Crisis was supposed to be about, right?
Yeah, well, I liked it in the last issue. This issue didn't really focus on it. This issue was just a lot of conflict bullshit for the sake of a comic book, really.
I'll take your word for it.
Didn't feel earned. Maguire's art is fine, but it wasn't as crisp, and it could have been the inks and colouring in the other realm too. Yeah, I actually did feel the shift a little bit when it switched to Maguire in this, and I like Maguire's art, but it felt like it was too different from the Tim's stuff. The Tim stuff is such a weird split, and it felt like I was missing something towards the end. But overall, message was something I can get behind. Oh, and Super Fate was a nice surprise, albeit brief. So Matt is more positive than me, and I'm glad he sends me these things because obviously the things that I forget to mention he kind of prompts out of me. But it's see, he gave it a 7.5. So even he's not like super hot on it. He's
on a Matt scale that's fairly low.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I'll give it a 6. Like, it's not a terrible comic book. It's just,
it's bizarre to me that you can give something a 6 where you said you kind of you actively dislike it by the end of that. You talked yourself into disliking it. I'd still give it a 6.
Well, the art's still mostly pretty good, and there's a nice sentiment to it. Okay, fine, 5.5. I'll go closer to that middle number, and the reason why is because so much of this issue just feels like we need to have some sort of fight with lots of art for it to be a comic book, and that's fine when you have that be a scene in a comic book, but that's like 90% of this comic is them, debating with Xanadoth, and Xanadoth being like, I'm going to take over the world, blah, blah, or the multiverse, or everything. Who cares? He's trying to take the helmet, and Superman's like grabbing the helmet and saying, no, you can't take this. Like, that sums up a lot of the issue. Wasn't for me. I'm sure some people might be more into it. They love the intricacies and every little bit of exposition about the magic and about the rules here. For me, it just felt like gobbledygook on gobbledygook, and yeah. So I mean, obviously, it's just a little 2-issue thing. Even though the Xanadoth character might pop back up because it's a tease at the end, unless it's teasing it for something else. But it's just a 2-issue thing, and I actually like the first half of it a lot, which is a shame why I didn't like this one as much. But there you go. 5.5 then, to appease Connor's critique of my number. So that'll take me on to The Flash issue. What are we on? 7 something. I have too many tabs because I keep going to Matt's email from my usual list. So yeah, The Flash 759, Joshua Williamson writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. This is the start of the finish line, the final arc from Joshua Williamson. And Matt teased, before I read anything, he teased that he liked this issue a lot, which, even though we've been more positive on it recently, it's not been at the level where Matt's like, hey, this is a really good issue. Like, before I read it. It's not had that sort of level of hype to it. So I was very intrigued going into this to see what it was going to be like. And Yeah, it's definitely one of the best issues of Flash that have happened in a long time, and part of that is because it finally almost feels like it doesn't. Most of the run bizarrely doesn't really matter at this point. It feels like it's more about just the history of Barry and Thawne and the other characters in general. Obviously, you have Wallace and Avery, and they're fine and they're great being there, but ultimately, what they've actually been through doesn't seem that relevant. At least in this issue, it may be more relevant as the story goes forward. Of course, I mean, I have no idea what elements are going to pull from soon. But if you remember last issue, Thawne went into Barry's body, and he is now possessed Barry, and he's running around. And all the art at the start I thought was really good because it was Thawne running around as Barry with a big smile on his face, saying, "I'm going to be a better Flash. I'm going to be the Flash that Barry can never be." He's got this big cheesy grin in his face. He's getting to finally cosplay as the hero that he always wanted to be. And he runs into the Young Justice and says hi to Bart, and Bart runs off with them, and he's all happy, and he's winking at him, and he's being all cheesy. And ultimately, when they end up like running into Captain Cold and Golden Glider, who've decided to rob a bank or whatever, Trickster's there as well, and Thawne basically like injures Trickster by being like too violent. And Bart questions it, and he's like, "Oh, maybe you're not a proper speedster. Maybe you're not good enough for the Flash family. Maybe I've made a mistake." And he runs off, and there's this panel of like Bart just like standing there, like with darkness around him, and it's like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." It really feels like that. And meanwhile, Barry is in not the Speed Force per se, but wherever he went when Thawne took over, with sort of a zombie-looking Jesse Quick and Max Mercury, and basically they try and talk to him. Though it looks like they're attacking them, but they try and talk to him to tell him to not be scared. To specifically that you've already paid enough for Flashpoint. Forgive yourself for it. And they turn into more normal looking, Jesse Quick and Max Mercury, because ultimately they were appearing scary to him because of his guilt. Bit of a stretch. I mean, that's just kind of in there, but I'll roll with it. And he's like, "Oh, I do remember you two. I remember Max Mercury. I remember Jesse Quick," and they're talking about it. And they're saying, "Hey, you have to try and get back out and take over." They talk, they're kind of catching up a little bit. But it's like you have to, think with the Speed Force that think at super speed and try and break out, because he actually sees he sort of like thinks about it. He can see Bart running with himself essentially with Thawne, and he tries to. There's a couple of moments where he kind of tries to and the art's quite good here, where it kind of phases between Thawne and Barry, where he actually yells out "Bart, run," meaning get away from Thawne. Obviously, he doesn't get that meaning from it, but basically, Thawne runs off to where Iris is hiding with Wallace and Avery, and he shows up and he's been all happy and kind of cheesy. And Iris is like, "Hey, you weren't supposed to come see us for a while. Like, the whole point of this was for you to stay away. And does this mean everything's dealt with?" And he's like, "Oh, I thought I'd come get my youngsters and go and like defeat Thawne as." And I think part of why Matt probably loves this issue. We've not got to what he said yet, but he's basically in the middle of trying to trick the kids into helping, and then we get this wonderful page of Bart kicking him in the face. He speeds in and kicks him in the face. It says, "You're mean. Barry Allen isn't mean." He's figured out that this is not really Barry, and whacks him away. And because of this, we get this wonderful interaction where Wallace and Avery are like, "Wait, who are you? What's going on?" And he's like, "Well, I'm Kid Flash." "Well, not really. I'm Impulse again now." But and there's this kind of like conflict back and forth, and the kids are almost ready to fight Bart, and it's Iris who steps in and says, "No. I remember you." Because Iris, of course, is remembered everything basically during this run, and he's like, he calls her grandma, and Avery and Wallace are just kind of like, "What?" Avery's like, "I really hate time travel. I'm never doing it. This is terrible. I don't want no part of this." All this stuff is really good. It's kind of the sort of stuff you wanted when you were dreaming of the Flash characters coming back and stuff being reinstated. He's finally kind of giving it to us. It's a shame that we have to do this without Wally. In fact, when someone brings up Wally, they have to kind of mention that Bart doesn't know what's happened to Wally, and continuity recently, and it's kind of awkward. So it's a shame that we have to deal with that. But the end of the book, and again, why I suspect Matt loves this, is that Barry Thawne is running towards everyone and is basically like, well, you know what? You're all a bunch of losers and you're not worthy of being my Flash family. And, he's getting ready to go in for the kill. And as much as obviously Bart, Wallace, and Avery are there, you kind of, obviously, this is Thawne. He's evil. He's dangerous. He's going to take them on. And then you just hear off panel, it says, son, I mean this with all due respect. And even before you turn to the final page, you know who it is. You know who it is. Jay speeds in, full page spread. Jay stands in the front of everyone else, saying, get the hell away from those kids. So it's full on Flash family, all this, well, not all, but the major speedsters that were lost in Flashpoint and times around then, all back together, kind of taking on this demented version of Barry, which is actually Thawne. Is this kind of what you were dreaming of, like in the early days of the run when there was teases, the J helmet,
like that up to issue 50 point where we had the Bart introduction.
Yeah, this is kind of what you were hoping for. And if it just went to this arc, like within an arc, maybe one arc, and then this afterwards, and ended the run, those 2 years of complaining would have all just been erased. It'd have been fine. But it's hard.
I would have read this.
It's hard not to pop for this issue though, because it does mostly really work, and the art's really good. At the final page, like I love the stuff with Bart and Iris. It was really good. It was kind of like their hug was very reminiscent of the Barry and Wally hug in a lot of ways. And then Jay, like, sort of zooming in here at the end, because as much as we've got 3 speedsters with Iris right now, they're all kids. So having like old man Jay swoop in here at the end is kind of wonderful. And I don't know if they're going to address exactly what the context with him is right now. We suspect the JSA is coming back in some capacity soon. So is this Jay from after that happening? Is this Jay from another timeline? Well, we don't know right now. It's a weird place to be in. Maybe they'll address some of this, maybe they won't. At this point, I'm not even going to get my hopes up. I just the moment itself works really well. It's hard not to pop. But I did like the early stuff as well. I think like having this kind of like cheesy version of Barry, it's almost kind of like, obviously it's not going to be dragged out as long, but if you remember when like Doc Ock became Spider-Man by taking over his body, this is kind of like the Flash version of that, but it's so ingrained into the character that Thawne's always wanted to be Barry. He's always had this kind of obsession with him. So it actually plays really well when he's like zooming around at the start with this big cheesy grin, being like, yes, I'm the Flash, everyone worship me. Like, it really comes off, and I think it's really well done. So, one of the best issues of Flash that we've had in quite some time. There is still a layer of apprehension because of what the book's been for a long time. So
it's not earned that trust back yet.
So there is a layer of like, how are you going to screw this up? Like, how are you going to screw this up in the next couple of issues? There is kind of that worry there, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But so it's not. So you can't just give yourself over to it completely because of that, but there's nothing much to fault in this issue on its own. It's kind of the crowd pleaser that we wanted from this book, and is yes, maybe it's like 25 to 30 issues too late in some ways, but hey, you know what? Better late than never. And that oddly fits Barry Allen to a T, bizarrely.
It does. So what did Matt actually say, rather than you just assuming what he liked?
Yes, I was making some assumptions there. So here we go, Flash. I'm glad I came back. This is the Williamson that I'm in for. This is about as Flash as a Flash book can get. The Thawne possession is still weird, as the timey-wimey stuff with all the villains. I love how Bart figures out that Barry isn't mean, and how Williamson referenced Bart's time as Flash. Yeah, Thawne at one point kind of says, what's going to happen? Is Wally going to be Flash again? Well, we definitely don't want you to become Flash again, Bart. Like, there's references to continuity. I think Max Merky also references like a time with Wally as well when he's talking to Barry. And Matt also notes that Bart's time as Flash is underrated. Read if people want to track down Flash, the fastest man alive. Collins inside the Speed Force section provided a nice compliment for Sandoval. Oh, yeah, I guess the art did change. I didn't even mention that. I only had one artist listed on Comixology. But now I'm thinking about it, the art did look different whenever it cut to Barry. So it's separated well. Yeah. Iris connecting or reconnecting with Bart hit me in the feels. It's nice to see the Flash family grow. So to see Wallace and Avery with Bart feels right. And then that last panel, oh man, so good. Jay Garrick, Colleen, Barry, Dawn, Sun, top 10 moment of 2020 question mark.
I mean, to be fair, pretty short list this year.
I mean, it is a good moment. Like, those last 2 pages are perfect. Those last 2 pages are perfect, as perfect can get in a Flash book. Matt gave it a 9 out of 10. I'm debating my own score. I don't know if I'm ready to go straight to it. I think I want to go 8.5, and my reasoning being is that, one, there's that layer of apprehension, right, which I can't really necessarily give to this issue as fault, admittedly, but also the middle does kind of slow down a little bit. You know, when Thawne Flash is like arguing with the villains that he's plucked out of time, he goes back to the base with them. Yeah, that stuff's just kind of whatever. So it does kind of like maybe sag a little in the middle because of that. But the opening is good, and then everything at the end. Bart realizing that it's not really Barry and showing up to save the day. Jay showing up. Oh, that's wonderful. So 8.5 for me on the Flash. So good stuff. All right, I'm going to rest my voice a little bit, I think. Hawkman, issue 26. Robert Venditti writing with Fernando Passarin on the art.
It is, and the reason that the cancellation of this book hurts so much is because this issue could have been the final issue. And if this was the final issue, if you take off the last 2 pages and tell me this was the final issue of the run, I'd have been happy. Because it felt like, no, this works as a conclusion to the 2-ish year story that Venditti was telling. It calls back all the way to the start of the run, it does all this stuff. And then you have a tease at the end that sets up the next stage of the book and where it's going. And that leaves me furious that I'm not going to get enough time with that. But most of this book, you have, you got Strange and Atom in their ship still. They're searching for the Hawks. They're like, well, I mean, we put chips in their heads, basically, tracking signal. We should know where they are. And then they're like, well, hang on a second, there's something, but it's not just them. It's way too big. And a big portal starts opening, and this is the Lord beyond the void, who's got them all captured in his world, is opening up the portal to come through, and he wants to take our world. And by world in this context, I mean universe. But to power it, he's powering himself. He is essentially draining the Hawks of their past lives. He like rips out like this energy of a past life from Hawkman. It's like, oh, Gold Hawk, were you? Oh, okay, and like absorbs the energy and kind of. I don't know if he erases the memory of it or just, takes the energy. I don't know. It's a little unclear on that, but basically, he's taking all their past lives and getting stronger. And their plan is basically they're like, we've had so many lives across all the time and space. Let's give him all at once. He'll try and overload him basically. The old tactic that works in everything of this sort of thing. And basically you have this gorgeous full page spread of them releasing their lives, because they come out in like each time he grabs one, it comes out as like a gold sort of yellowy vision of that person, that incarnation. And you have like a whole bunch of both of them come out. All these ones that we've seen over the run: the Plague Doctor, the Cowboy, all of these ones that we've had over the run, and all go and charge at the Lord Beyond the Void at once, and kind of basically overload him, and he can't take the energy, and it kills him. But it kills the Hawks as well. They're dead. They die here, and just as Atom and Strange are getting there, and they come down, and they're literally just crying over their bodies, and they're dead. And that's when we cut to them in the afterlife. This is the fields of wherever we were before, with all the stuff at the start of the run, the field of skulls that Qatar had to atone for, and we got the quote unquote god who Shira worked for, and her punishment was she would be tied to Qatar until he was a better man, and she wouldn't get her wings back, her real wings, her angel wings, so to speak, until he had. And and we have them here, and it's the voice of God talking to them, basically going, do you know what? That final sacrifice, your debt's paid. I release you into oblivion, into peace. You have no more lives. You can die at last. And the two of them are like, but God senses that the two of them actually kind of just want to be together. They don't want to die. They're not ready for it now. So basically says, you know what? If it's what you want, you can have one more life together. No more reincarnation. You get one chance together, and then you will face oblivion separately, not this eternity together in this way that I'm offering now. And they go, okay, we'll take it. And they vanish. And that could have been the final page. That could have been the ending of the run. But you have one last page where the last panel is as they vanish, they're holding each other, they're going in for a kiss. And they vanish, and the final panel on the second to last page is them rematerializing. And then it pulls back for the final page, and it's them with the JSA in the 60s or whatever it is, 40s, 60s, wherever we're setting the JSA right now. They're
40s,
in the,
I think, but yeah, sure.
We're in the 40s right now. Okay, it's them there. They're at the round table. You've got a young Jay and Alan. You got Wesley Dodge. You got Wildcat, and it's them all sat there, and they're going, what's the plan, Hawks? And it says next Golden Age, and it's like, that's infuriating that we're only getting 3 issues of this now. I want a whole run of this bit now, damn it. That's why I'm angry about this cancellation. Because if you cancelled it without this last page and just left it here, I'd have gone, that was a fitting end to this 26 issue run. But it just set up the next stage of what Venditti had planned, and I was so excited seeing this last page, and we're doing JSA stuff in this book. This is the JSA book going forward, essentially, right now.
Well,
And then
we're expecting an actual JSA book, so I mean, the JSA book, theoretically, in a manner of speaking, will kind of lead on from.
Ideally, yes, but Venditti doing it here, his Hawkman run has been so fantastic. Bringing it, doing this JSA with the Hawks as the focal point would have been fantastic. And I'm so annoyed I'm only going to get a couple of issues of it. This issue is like a 9.5. This is up there as, okay, this is how you cap off a run. And then this final page tease of what's coming next is so good. And I'm so annoyed. And the art is phenomenal throughout. Everything is gorgeous. Just hell of an issue.
Well, I will tell you what Matt thinks of the issue here. It all leads to this. The book feels so much like Aaron's Thor, and it's not just the barbaric type hero, but feeling that it's an epic saga. That's who Hawkman is in his purest form. Carter and Shara sacrifice their histories to eliminate the threat that is the Lord beyond the void. So you can tell I don't read this because I have no idea what he's talking about. Passarin nails every version of the Hawks and manages to have fantastic action scenes without the two heroes chained to the wall. It's heartbreaking when Atom and Strange come across them. You feel that emotion, but the Hawks restoring the balance and Venditti rewriting their mythos is what makes this issue an example of everything that made the series up to this point work. So when we'll call him the one above all, grants the Hawks their wish to return to one life instead of eternity in paradise with one another. And it's not our current timeline, but instead the JSA. That's 2 instances of the JSA showing back up in as many books. 9.5 out of 10 is what Matt gave this.
Yeah, lined up perfectly.
So you're giving it?
Yeah, I did. No? You obviously weren't paying attention, but I already did.
No, I wasn't. You can't give me shit. I was looking at Twitter. You tweeted about the snooker, and it was timed 12 minutes ago. So
I haven't got the snooker on right now?
I don't want to hear shit about me not paying attention.
It is right there. I am looking at it, not you.
That's perfectly fine. Let's move on with the live show.
And let's be honest, you were jabbering on about some mumbo jumbo complaints in Superman while I was tweeting that. So
sure, yeah. So that was Hawkman. Batman the Outsiders issue 15, final book of the week. Bryan Hill writing with Dexter Sawyer on the art. This is one that me and Matt usually talk about, but Matt's not here. He did send in his thoughts. This will probably be quite a quick discussion with myself. It's not really a discussion, I suppose, at that point. But it's this is ending at 17. This was issue 15, and it kind of feels like this is just kind of the setup for the final sort of two-part finale, if you will, because this is very much a setup issue. Ra's al Ghul's in Japan. He goes after essentially this secret group, which I'll put it in Mr. Robot terms for Connor to understand. The 1% of the 1%. This evil group of people who meet up every so often and decide the world's ongoing.
If you just said that they're Illuminati, I'd have gone, yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, I guess, yeah, but it's more of a business person kind of, just like they're corporation CEOs and stuff like that. The art's gorgeous, of course. There's a lot of blues and greens and neons in the background as the outsiders arrive in Japan. And there's some stuff. Batman has to threaten this dude with robot arms. He has Sophia hold him upside down, off a crane. But basically, to get to the point where he realizes what they're doing. Again, the art's really good. There's this whole thing where they were talking about it last issue, but Jefferson using his electric magnetic kind of sense to try and locate the explosives, the device that Ra's al Ghul is going to use, and he's essentially sitting in like a sort of orb of electricity, and it's something that later on in the issue, when he's doing it on a grander scale, is gorgeous because he ends up with this giant, like, imagine the top of the Daily Planet with the globe, but the globe instead is like 10 times as big, but it's that of electricity with him floating in the middle. This gorgeous full page. Ra's al Ghul uses the network. One of the people in the 1%ers is like the owner of like a broadcasting system. So he broadcasts the world that he's about to, fix everyone, basically. And he's taking out Japan first. And the cliffhanger is just that Batman, appears, where they are, where Raz and his gang are, and because basically everyone else is like, what's going on? Something's coming. Someone disturbs us, and Raz is like the optimist, the detective, the fool. So the final page is this gorgeous full page of Batman standing at the broken window, the cape flowing in the wind, for the face off. So there's not a whole lot to say in that. It's just kind of putting all the pieces in place. But the art is gorgeous. That full page of Jefferson and his orb of lightning, with all the multicolored buildings below, all the purples and green and pink neon lights and all that. It's really quite gorgeous. I am fully, looking forward to these last two issues and the final showdown. This has been a solid B tier book with like A+ tier art. Ultimately, is how I describe it. Really, really solid. And this issue, slots in there. It was a quick read, as a lot of these issues often have been, but very enjoyable. I think Matt was kind of in a similar vibe. His sounds a bit more negative in a sense, but he says, being honest, I read this the other night before bed and don't really remember exactly what happened, but I think I enjoyed it. Soy on art is always good. I like the image of the meditating Black Lightning. There is something with the Master Group and Raz making a play. I'm sure Hill will nail the landing. You give it a 7, which is probably not far off. I'll probably go with a 7.5 just because the art's so good, but it's a fine setup issue. It's a setup issue for the big showdown in the last two, and we'll see kind of what final beats he wants to play with us. So, but yeah. And I do wonder, because there's been a couple of issues like this where they felt kind of moving things around, and I wonder if maybe extending it to the 17 issues from the original 12 that were planned is why there's a couple of issues that feel a little bit like this. But
it could be. It could also be part of Hill's been very upfront that he's not sure he's suited for long form comics, like ongoing, and he said he does want to do more comics work in the future, but he'd rather be doing minis and maxis.
Yeah.
And he says in a perfect world he'll get to do a maxi with Duke and kind of finish off whatever he was setting up in this story.
Yeah, that'd be cool if he gets a 12 issue book or something. Yeah.
That moving pieces around could just be him not feeling 100% comfortable with the format.
Very well. Given that it gets extended by 5 issues, and I wouldn't say there's been 5 like I feel this, there's been 1 or 2. So it's not like it's like all the extended. It's like he's basically just had to put in those 5 filler issues before he's ending. It's not like that at all. It's not, and even this is still an enjoyable enough issue, but it definitely doesn't feel as packed with progression as a lot of the other stuff do. It's just one of those nature. We talk about a lot in TV. The moving the things around the chessboard episode, and
some of those episodes are still perfectly enjoyable. Often in a good show they are, especially if if you like the characters, you like the banter, whatever, then it's fine. they're just not the most exciting episodes, and it translates to comics as well. Where as long as the characters are still good, it can be an enjoyable issue to read. It usually takes a lot less time than an episode of TV as well
Yeah.
for the commitment.
Yeah, 7.5 from me. No, fine, perfectly fine. Good stuff. So that'll take us out of the part of the show, though, where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite art, favorite cover, top 5 books. Matt did send in his, so we can go through that too. So I'll use his to kind of start each one. So we'll start off with moment of the week. He said it's between Jay Garrick showing up at the end of Flash or the Hawks return to the JSA. What can I say? I'm a mark for that shit. To quote unquote one Matt. Yeah, I have to go with Jay. I mean, there's a moment in Wonder Woman. That ending in Wonder Woman is also, I think, really fantastic. But it's hard not to pop for Jay, especially the protective nature he has with the kids is really good. What are you picking?
Yeah, I mean, those last page moments are up there in, 2 of my 3 books here. It's the JSA Hawks and the Wonder Woman.
You're going with Jarrow though, aren't you?
That honestly, that's the only other moment in consideration. It's ultimately for me, it's down to either Jarrow or the Hawks page. But seeing as Matt gave that, I'll go with the Jarrow. I won't be the stereotypical mark for the JSA.
Sure. And then Matt picking his favorite cover of the week. He went with the regular Wonder Woman cover. The Middleton variant's very good too, but there's something iconic about that Marquez cover. I have to confess, I've not looked ahead, so you're going first.
Okay, I've got it narrowed down to 2. One is the Wonder Woman variant, which is the Middleton cover, which is gorgeous. The other one is the regular Hawkman cover, which is the Janin cover. So both great artists, both great covers. I'll probably edge it to Wonder Woman variant, but honestly, those are the only 2 that really stood out to me this week.
I'm just sort of glancing. I actually really like the Flash variant, which is a In-Hyuk Lee cover. I'm probably butchering that name. He's been doing a few of those though recently. All red. It's very. It's the evil version of Flash. All the lightning. It looks really nice. Got that sort of painted looking quality. I do like the regular Wonder Woman cover, and I do actually quite like the metal cover, which is the one that's the Wonder Woman on the bike. I have no idea which artist that is, but
Wonder Woman on the bike.
Yeah,
I'll have a look, see if I can tell which artist it is.
Yeah, it's hard because there's so many variants for metal that it's hard to, unless there's like a really obvious style that sticks out. But I think I'm probably going to go with Wonder Woman on the bike, but the Flash variant's really good. So
I think that cover might be the no, never mind. I was going to say I thought it was one, but I don't think it is. Carry on.
Yeah,
I'm not confident enough to give it to anyone. If I was, I think it's the Federici cover, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. So that is cover of the week. Art of the week. Matt has went for Passarin for Hawkman. What are you going with?
Wonder Woman.
I'm thinking about it. Dexter saw in Outsiders was great. Wonder Woman was great. Death Metal was pretty good. Yeah, I'm going with Wonder Woman too. But I thought about it. I had to think about it.
Yeah, I just checked. 99 sure it's the Perillo cover for Wonder Woman.
There you go. That's my pick. All right, so top 5 books of the week. Matt went with number 5, Wonder Woman, number 4, Superman, number 3, Death Metal, number 2, Flash, number 1, Hawkman. Was his, and I said it in reverse because it's more dramatic, even though we normally do it that way, because it's just easier to think of it from best downwards. What's your top 5 of the week, or top 3, I guess, in your case?
It is a top 3. Honestly, though, very happy with all 3. Like, quality was up there. I'd be happy with that every week if it was like this. Because it's Hawkman, Metal, Wonder Woman.
I think my number 1's Wonder Woman. My number 2 is Metal. Oh, and I'm on Matt's list and not mine, or not the. They're just a list of books, which is confusing because he's got them all ranked. Look at the vanilla list. Yeah, so Wonder Woman number 1, Death Metal at number 2, I think Flash at number 3, Outsiders at number 4, and then by default Superman's in last place, which is a shame, but I wasn't super into that issue, so that's what it is. So there you go. That is the picks, which leads me to tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. And yes, DC Comics still exists next week, don't worry. Just in case you were concerned. So coming next week, we have Batman 97. We have Wonder Woman Annual Issue 4, which...
That's the actual ending to Orlando's run.
Yeah, so that's not something that we'll be covering because we obviously weren't reading that run. But noteworthy that it is coming out. Nightwing 73 is out. Justice League 51, which is the start of the next fill-in arc.
Just a 2-issue fill-in from Loveness, I believe.
Yeah. Aquaman 62 is out. Harley Quinn 75. Is that the last issue of Harley Quinn?
It is, and we haven't actually had the new series announced yet.
Well, fandom's coming, so we'll see.
That's true.
Teen Titans 44, Catwoman 24, Wonder Woman Dead Earth issue 4 is out. It's a shame that it was like a busy week or whatever. I don't remember why I didn't read issue 3, because I was into the first 2 issues of that. But that's wrapping up next week. Dark Knight's Death Metal Guidebook issue 1 is out next week.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of this is stories. Like the listed writers, we've got Snyder, Williamson, Tynan, Christopher Priest, Chip Starsky, Vita Ayala, Becky Cloonan. So
I'll have to look at
worth a look.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the preview pages on Comixology on Tuesday and see if it's like a proper book. And then Metal Men number 9 is also out. And just for completion's sake, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You 105, if anyone's interested. So
yeah, we've only got between us 3 or 4 books next week.
Yeah, it's a really light week, so we'll be doing questions for sure.
Expect Patreon books.
Expect Patreon books. So quiet before the storm next week. Oh, quiet in between the storms is maybe more of an accurate descriptor, but we have of course fandom actually starting whilst we record next week. It's just that it happens to fall on when we record. So all of the news that comes out of that, barring maybe some very early things, will all be the following week. So we should have a nice big news week in 2 weeks' time. But and Matt should be back next week, of course. It's just, of all the episodes from To Miss, it's the episode with all that news and
all those books.
Yeah. So hey ho. But there you go. That is episode 214 of Comics from the Multiverse. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month of August. So thank you to Alison M. Fordyce, Tyler Hess, Cindy Palisades, David Sharp, Boardnow, Zammer Jammer, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, and Brett Williams. They are all $20 patrons or more on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support us though for just $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. At the $5 tier specifically, you get early access to the show by 1 day, as well as Previously in the Multiverse when we post one of those. That one's less consistent as to when it comes out, but whenever there is one, it goes up a day early on Patreon. Of course, you can check out other content we have. We just finished reviewing Stargirl Season 1. Doom Patrol Season 2 just finished like a week or two ago. And
both very good.
Both very good. Surprisingly good, in fact. So you can get those on the YouTube page.
I feel like we should just mention as well, this past week, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had its final episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I know obviously it's borderline sacrilegious given that it's a Marvel property, but it's it was a great show. And we finished off our reviews for that.
Yep. So you can check out that stuff. Of course, please do like and subscribe. Liking is a nice free way of supporting everything we do. It helps us out a lot. More people will find us that way. Same logic if you're listening to the audio podcast. You can go to your iTunes or whatever it is you get your podcast from and rate us, give us the 5 stars and a review of some kind, praising me and Matt as much as you want. So you can go to that. You can also, of course, get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. Relevant this week especially because we will be asking for questions next week, but you can also send them over to mftvquestions@gmail.com. I'll be putting requests out for questions during the week, but please do send them in for next time. But otherwise, that is us. That is the episode 214. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, guys. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.